OG Mizzen
Nice.
live right now.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
And
Oh
we are
shit, we're
live.
live. Look at that. Oh,
Yeah,
I
we're
cursed.
live.
My apologies. There you
I
go.
don't. I don't mind. I'm not monetized or anything, so like,
There
I
you
try to
go.
keep it clean myself. But hey,
That's
so
good.
I don't know who we have in. Maybe we've got people in. Maybe we don't, because I didn't do an announcement. So like, I'm not sure if we'll be just. It'll just be us, and then maybe people will watch replay. But if anybody's in, I hope you guys can hear everything, and that this is going to be interesting. I've got oh, it says 2 watching now, so that's great. But that might be us. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that might be us. That might be us. There you go.
Nice. Oh no, we got somebody. Yeah, Angry
All
Vegan.
right.
Greetings and
There you go.
salutations. Salutations. Nice. I haven't heard that one. That's a good one. Thanks. Cool. All right. So that's great. I'm really excited getting to basically return the favor in a way, having Liam Anthony on. If anybody from my viewers doesn't know Liam, he actually kind of helped me out quite a bit and featured me on his channel like way early on. Like I think I had maybe like 40 people subscribed at that point when I first went on your channel, Liam. So yeah, thanks for that. And then we did another discussion later, and yeah, I just wanted to get you on. And I've been kind of like wanting to talk to you about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and other stuff, and music and activism, and kind of about your channel and what has been going on there. So yeah, maybe just if anybody's watching who doesn't know you, if you want to just share a few words about kind of where you're at and what you're doing.
Yeah. So my name's Liam Anthony. I'm a recovering YouTuber. I've been sober for 2 months. Yeah, no, man. Thanks for the kind words. Yeah, no, you're like I like you because you're like one of the smarter vegans on the internet. Like your knowledge of the health and how to read studies and stuff like that has just brought me a bunch of value. So I really appreciate that.
Cool.
As far as my channel, so for the, like I had a channel going. I did it for a year. It was like a year in like April or something like that, and essentially I stopped doing it about 2 months ago. I've done a few live streams here and there that were just really impromptu, but I didn't keep them up or anything like that, and they were only like an hour or so long. Just got bored of doing YouTube, wasn't happy with the content that I was putting out there. Like I left some of the videos up that I was happy with. I think you had just commented on a couple of the ones that were more self-development oriented and stuff like that. I found myself like it becoming a chore, especially because I had the podcast format, which was like the main push for the channel. It was my content strategy, and it was working really well. Relatively speaking, because every week more and more viewers, every week more and more subscribers. The guests kept getting quote unquote bigger and bigger and stuff like that. But it became like a chore. I had to constantly start reaching out to people and coordinating schedules and like going out of my way to schedule, like move plans around just to schedule to make sure because I wanted to be as accommodating to each one of my guests as I possibly could. And it was fun. Like a lot of it was fun. Don't get me wrong, where I was like talking to all these people and all this, but there was an element of a chore because I was like, oh shit, I need to get somebody on, and it might have not have been like somebody I was even interested in talking to, it was just like, I need to get you on here. Because this is my content building strategy to grow the channel, which I don't think was like, it's not a bad thing to think of those terms, but when you're trying to engage in like a creative process, that's not a good reason to create quote unquote, artwork or something like that. But a lot of people got a lot of value of it because when I quit the channel, I made a video announcing, I got so much support, and just like I didn't realize this many people actually gave a shit about what was going on in this small little tiny corner of the internet. And so like that pumped me up. That was a cool thing. But it became a chore, and then like I wasn't happy with like the quality, the broadcast quality and stuff like that, and the types of videos that I wanted to do. Couldn't really do because I was having technology issues, and I didn't want to fork out the money just to buy new equipment and all this type of shit. So I was just like, you know what, fuck it. Like I'm done. It's over. So yeah.
All right. Well, I hope that that your opinion on that will change maybe again, because I was definitely one of the people that enjoyed your content, and I mean, you did have quite a few really interesting people on. So I think And I'm not even talking about like, you know, the more recent, you had some big names on. I mean, you had Mike the
Yeah.
Vegan on,
Yeah.
and that was pretty cool. And you had a bunch of other people that I do enjoy following and you know, seeing. So yeah, I mean, I think, you know, if nothing else, you know, you might maybe put those back. I know what you mean, like about a legacy, like if there's something you're not happy with, like,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, you don't want that to be kind of out there, but yeah, maybe just, you know, take a break, and then who knows, later you'll be,
well, it's like the so like one of the things I really want to do as a project, because I like, you know, that's kind of how I look at things, because I released the mixtape on my channel, you know, and that was like a few years in the making. It was pretty fucking nuts, and none of those songs were even finished. Like that was just like, all right, I'm just releasing them, you know. I'm just putting them out, because it's like, if I don't do it, I'm never gonna finish this, you know. I'm never gonna re-record, yada yada yada. And that was fun, because it was like a project, right? So like when you focus, and then you're learning new skills, and you're trying to master this little moment, there's something that's fulfilling from it, you know, like this like little tiny road of mastery on like a micro scale. And like one of the projects I do want to do is my anxiety series, which is something I've talked about for a while, or I've foreshadowed for a while. So that is in the works, and that's going to be in the light of how to influence others through relationships, you know, how not to leech value. So the video format will be within those within that context. But that's a big mountain, and I think I'll release that, and once I'm done writing and shooting it. But as far as video content, I think that will be like the end of it. That will be so that I'm super excited about.
Nice. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think that'll be cool. Yeah. And are you actively working on music now?
I'll spit some bars here and there. You know what I'm saying? I'll hit some freestyles. Nice. No, I'm music'd out.
Yeah.
Like, in order to make it better, I have to learn how to use the programming on the computer, you know, how to use Ableton better. But it's just like, I'm not tech savvy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm like, my friend's like, hey man, I learned how to make beats and stuff. You should come on over. And it's like that I'm not interested in. I'm interested in, you know, you give me the microphone, I'll write some raps down, I'll rap some shit, and then, you know, I'll go from there. You do all the engineering, you make the music and stuff like that. Because that's just too much work. And I used to be one of those guys, because I used to be in like a metal band and stuff like that. Oh, rap and, you know, making music with a laptop is not even real and stuff. Like, no, man, that's so hard. That takes making a drum pattern that sounds good on a digital workstation is so much harder than
just playing the kit.
Yeah,
I agree.
I mean, there's a big learning curve on the kit. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? But like, to program bass on a thing and pick up a bass, like, it's just, I'd much rather pick up a bass, plug it in, you hit record, and then, you know, I do it, than like trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Were you playing an instrument in the metal band?
I was one of the singers, but I eventually ended up playing like a backup guitar as well, like a rhythm on it as well, because we were just trying to add as many layers as we could to it. It was super fun.
Nice. I think there was like music in one of the videos that you had up. Was that your band that was playing? It was like definitely some like hardcore kind of metal.
No. I think you're talking about one of my old intros. No, that was one of my favorite. That was a clip from a concert from one of my favorite bands, the Blood Brothers. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was the name of it. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure if that was like your band or not.
No. I should have been telling people that though. No, that was I'm talking about. You know, I'm in my I'm 30 now. That was like in my late teens, you know.
Okay, this is like old stuff. So you wouldn't have like video of it, probably.
No, that was before video. You know, that was still like, there's no cameras on phones. There, you know.
Oh yeah, you had like the family video camera that was like this big, and you put it on your shoulder, and you had that little eye thing that slid out.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing, like what technology has done for us. I mean, like, yeah, like even just thinking back to that, like I remember those big video cameras, like the VHS video cameras for making like home movies and stuff.
Yeah.
And digitizing, like, forget about it. Like, it was all like just the analog tape and stuff.
Yeah, no, for sure. So you just did a live stream with Logan.
Yeah.
Logan Blake and stuff like that, because I guess he's been debating people, and I haven't watched any of these debates, but he's been debating people on a raw diet versus a diet that includes cooked foods. And I was watching some of your live stream, the cholesterol live stream that you guys just came out with like a day or two ago. So where are you standing on the raw? Like, is 100% raw food diet a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it a diet that includes cooked foods? Where do you stand?
Yeah. So I'll probably make Logan angry at me or whatever, but like, yeah, I'm not a fan of the raw, like 100% raw diet.
Yeah.
I just think it's for most people kind of inconvenient enough and difficult enough to do it well that it just is not something I would basically recommend. I wouldn't do it for myself, so I just wouldn't feel comfortable recommending it to anybody else, even if I were convinced that it was like maybe nominally healthier. I don't think it actually is. Like none of the science I've seen really, backs up or is conclusive that like you're losing enough nutrients from cooking, especially like steaming or doing like, basically like boiling kind of things. In fact, some nutrients are more available by cooking. So things like the lycopene in tomatoes and, there's like a few other examples. I think for the most part, though, it's generally agreed upon that the nutrient value does decrease from cooking. Yeah. But like you're eating so many high quality nutrients and vitamins and minerals and antioxidants and everything from the fruits and veggies that you're just getting an abundance of everything anyway. So like, like I understand like, yeah, cooking my broccoli will reduce whatever, vitamin content of the thing by 30-40%, but like who cares? Like even the 60% is enough that like it's way more than most people are getting because they're not eating broccoli at all.
Yeah, well, I seen in one of Dr. Greger's video, he addresses this, right? So he talked about boiling broccoli, right, and how people are so phobic against that. They're just like, oh my god, you're ruining the broccoli. And he's like, yeah, there is some loss of nutrition because it like kind of dissipates into the water or whatever. And then he's like, you know what you do? You just eat a couple more florets of broccoli, and then there you go. You make up the 20% or whatever. You just eat a couple more little tiny, spoonful or two. And there you go. You make up on it. So,
and one thing there too is that it's actually easier to eat more of it because it's like soft and you can chew it easier. So if you've ever tried eating like a big head of raw broccoli, you gotta go to town on that thing, man. It's like,
and when it comes to eating healthy, like you have to eat things that you like to eat or you're not going to eat healthy, so that's one thing. Well, because one of my criticisms, I've been thinking about food and health food like kind of differently now, in two ways. So the first way is I don't think it's the end all be all thing. I think that vegans and everybody else, they kind of overhype the importance of the diet, which there's definitely an association, a causation effect, all this type of stuff between your health and the food that you eat. But, you can do everything perfectly and you still can get sick. You're just reducing your risk. So it's, you can have the perfect diet with the GMOs and all this type of stuff, but, you could still end up getting, heart disease and stuff like that because there's 17 different types of heart disease and all this type of shit, right? So there's that.
And you could still get genetic problems. You could still get environmental toxins. You could still get a whole bunch of other things. I would agree with that. And I also think, like you said, I think that the most important thing you said out of all of those things is that you have to be able to do it and sustain it and feel good doing it. And from what I've seen, from the few people I know that have tried a raw diet, it has not gone well for them. So they eventually just get kind of tired of doing it and they kind of fall off and do something else. And I've been doing my, predominantly, whole food plant-based diet now for like 2.5 years. And I still feel great. I haven't got tired of it. I think it's easy. I do eat a lot of raw, fruits and veggies too, but I do have like cooked food pretty much on a daily basis. So like
which is a much different statement than saying a raw food diet is inherently unhealthy, right? Because
I wouldn't say that.
Just But so here, I'll give you an example of why I think people are obsessive over diet a little too much, right? So take like a UFC fighter, an MMA fighter. Joe Rogan does this all the time. He falls into this trap. He'll point out like somebody like Mac Danzig, who's like a vegan fighter and stuff like that. And he'll point out, well, he was never a champion. You know, he was never elite, top level, yada yada yada. Now, there's tons of reasons for that. The population of vegans within the MMA community is very negligent. It's not even, it's marginal.
Well,
right?
it's probably similar to the population at large, right? So it's like
1%,
maybe up to
right?
3-4%, maybe tops.
So, there's that. But it's like a diet isn't going to take a super athlete and turn them into like a super Saiyan athlete. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to be this huge factor that's going to be revolutionary to this person, right? There's going to be way more contributing factors to that person's performance than just diet, right? Now, diet is not necessarily going to, it's definitely going to help in certain ways. Like, it can lower inflammation, your recovery can be better, but we're talking about, maybe 10-20% at the very most. Right. And that's, I'm throwing a liberal thing out there. And I think this is going to piss a lot of people off, me saying, because this is my paradigm on diets kind of changing a little bit. Right. I think saying 10-20% difference in their performance is a little much, especially if they were already eating healthy. You know what I'm saying? Like, if
do you mean healthy as an omnivore though? Like,
healthy as an omnivore.
Okay,
right. Healthy as an omnivore. Now, if you take somebody who's eating nothing but, top ramen and Oreos and drinking sodas and Monster Energy drinks like that, and you start eliminating those processed foods, there's going to be a significant difference. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if you take somebody who's eating generally healthy, right, where they're eating less processed foods, they're getting their 6 servings of vegetables and fruits and stuff like that, but they're still eating some processed foods. I don't think that difference is going to be huge coming from a performance standpoint into a whole foods plant-based diet, right? There are risks for chronic illnesses long term, for sure, right? So, for example, you can be smashing in the saturated fat and cholesterol and all this type of stuff. And the point that I'm trying to make, I feel like I'm not articulating it well, but it's a very nuanced point, right? So what I'm like, to bring it back to the Joe Rogan situation, it's like that fighter isn't doing poorly because of his diet. That fighter's doing poorly because either his skill's not there, he's fighting too high up of skill level in comparison to where he's at, his rest may be off, his training, he might be injured. Like, there's all these other factors for why your performance the way that it is.
I would largely agree with you. And I think, like, I can't remember if it was Vegetable Police or somebody had addressed this almost exact point about Mac Danzig specifically. Because he's a big UFC fan, and I think he talked about it at one point, and he made the point that, like, look, the fact that the guy is in the UFC already means that he beat, like 90% of the population, like at large, right? So, like, it's like you're already looking at a subset of people that's like already pretty, high level, like athletic skill and even fighting skill. So the fact that he's not like at the top of the top, that doesn't mean that anything about the vegan diet. That still means that his vegan diet allowed him to beat the 99 people that didn't get into the UFC. So like there's that. And then as far as like the performance, how much of it can boost somebody who's already an elite athlete. I remember there was a video that Dr. Greger did about beets and beet juice and how it improves like the oxygen uptake and all this kind of stuff. And in that video, there was like one of the studies that he cited, there was a study done on, I think they were like professional athletes. They were like runners. I think they were marathon runners or 5K runners. I forget the distance, but I know they were like professionals. And these guys were able to like PR on races by something like, 5% on their time or something, which is huge. Because like once you get to that level, like even beating a PR is like pretty challenging as it is, but to beat it by 5% is a big deal. Yeah. And so I mean, I don't know, but 5%, but like you said 10 to 20, like, I wouldn't expect it to be able to do something that big. And I would definitely agree with you, what you said, that like, a lot of these illnesses take, decades to develop. So for sure, it's going to still protect them like down the long term.
So here, I'll give you another example, because I've spent how, you know, I've been vegan for 11 years, doing like health stuff for the past 4, you know, and then a year on my channel arguing for the benefits of adopting a whole foods plant-based diet. I'm being a contrarian right now. So I'll give you an example. If you're obese and you're 350 pounds overweight, you're 52 years old, you have diabetes, your cholesterol is high, your blood pressure is high, going on a whole foods plant-based diet is going to have a super significant impact on your well-being.
Absolutely.
Without a fucking doubt. But if you're 22, you know, or 16 or 18 or even 30, and you're in good shape and you're fit and you switch from whatever diet that you're eating to a whole foods plant-based diet, you're probably not going to notice a big difference. Right. In that term. Oh yeah, I know you're gonna argue with me here.
Yeah, I'm gonna argue with you.
That's fine. That's fine. That's part of the reason. Yeah. That's part of the reason why I'm bringing this up. And I'm going to tie this into the raw food versus cooked food situation, right? So what's going to happen is you may not notice a big difference, right, in your well-being or whatever. Long term, you are, right? Yeah, long term, you are. So when you're 70, when you're 80, you know, 80-year-old pal is going to thank 30-year-old pal, you know, for switching, or, you know, whatever, 40. And, you know, I think this is what gets people tripped up a lot, right? Because they start thinking about, because I'm thinking about the Sean O'Malley, when he was on Joe Rogan podcast, he went vegan for 6 months, but he was eating eggs and all this type of shit. And he was just like, so this is who I'm talking to right now, right? It's, you know, you start learning about like how to eat healthy and stuff like that. And then, you know, most evidence points towards going to a plant-based diet. And then you go on it and you don't feel too different. You know, you don't feel too different. It's probably because you're young, right? Yep. It's probably you've never learned how to listen to your body. You know what I'm saying? So you start switching on over and you don't see these tremendous results, right? And you just kind of keep doing what you're doing. Well, that's because you're not in any pain. Yep. You know what I'm saying? You're not in any pain. You're working out twice a day. You're young. You know, you're out doing shit. Like, you're not in any pain. The person who's in pain is the person who's on statins and is obese and stuff like that. They're the ones who see the results. You know,
professional athletes though will have pain, and if you look at some of these guys, like some of these footballers and stuff like that have gone vegan, you know, they will actually say that one of the big benefits is that they get lower inflammation and they are reducing like joint pain. And I can definitely tell you, like, I mean, I'm 40 now, and a lot of like people my age, like, they're already complaining about like, oh, this hurts, that hurts, or like, oh, I can't go running because my knees are messed up, or, you know, all this kind of stuff. And some of these professional athletes will say the same thing. So they are already experiencing the benefit. But yeah, this guy, I don't know how old he is, like Sean O'Malley, but you know, he might not be getting joint pain yet, and he might not be having any problems in recovering, you know, from like his 2 workouts a day or whatever. But like maybe 5 years from now, he will be. You know, like, I don't know.
No, that's so. And I've been meeting a lot of these types of people lately who are young, and that's kind of why I'm talking about it, because, you know, I think we fall into this trap that like diet's just one cure-all, super, you know, it's like the limitless pill in that Bradley Cooper movie, right?
Yeah, I was thinking, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
You know, where you take this pill and you just transform and everything is right in the world and all this type of stuff. You become smarter, leaner, you know, all this type of shit. And it's just like, well, no, you know, this is one of many things that you have to do, right? It's like, it's a small investment and you don't really see the payoff until later on, or if you're already in pain, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. And, you know, with the Sean O'Malley thing, right? So he was like, you know, I ate like shit. I ate Pop-Tarts. I ate ramen noodles. I didn't know anything about it. And he's training, you know, he's a professional athlete, like, or you know, he has just entered into the professional realm. So, you know, he's training twice a day, you know, that rigorous schedule that MMA fighter trains. And he didn't go from eating shit. And then he happened to watch, you know, What the Health or whatever. And then what happens is you start getting these ideas. And, you know, I've been bringing up Joe Rogan a lot. I was just watching the Joe Rogan podcast. He had Faraz Hobby on there. He's a famous MMA coach. And And what happens is you get this idea that diet's going to be the end all cure, like just like this crazy game changer for you. And for some people it will. For those people, the people who it's a game changer for are usually somebody who have pain, right? They're obese or diabetes, or maybe you did have chronic inflammation in your lower back, right? And then just eating plants, or you had an allergy to dairy and eliminating that. There's a lot of variables, right? There's a lot of variables. But what happens is you go from eating all this shit and you have no good habits. You have no good eating habits, right? And then you learn about how diet can have a huge impact on you, right? Either you listen to a Joe Rogan podcast, or you come across like your channel or whatever, a thousand different, the medical industry has been lying to you. You got to eat like this, blah, 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 blah. Right. So you learn about this. So you have like this perception, this anticipation that this diet's going to completely revolutionize your world and shit like that.
Yeah.
So you make a radical change, right? You start eating a smoothie bowl or whatever the hell he was doing, but you haven't built up any of the skills that's going to lead you to eating a healthy diet long term, right? It's kind of like when somebody wins the fucking lottery, all right? So you learn about the plant-based diet.
Yeah.
You win the lottery. You win the lottery, but you blow it all because you have none of the skills, right? Or none of the appreciation for what it takes to have that type of money or to earn that type of money. That's why most people, there's a large percentage of people who blow through their earnings of winning the lottery within the first 2 years, as opposed to somebody who started a lifetime building up wealth and is able to keep on to that wealth and continue to grow it year over year. And that's what happens with these people, especially when they find out about a whole foods plant-based diet. They have this huge anticipation that it's going to be revolutionary. And if they don't have any pain, what happens is they kind of eat it and they don't see the cost or the benefit to it.
Yeah.
Right? They're just like, oh, I'm just eating this way because I'm eating this way. That's why, in my opinion, ethical vegans have a higher retention rate, because there's a serious reason for why they're eating plants as opposed to,
So even if they don't notice any benefit, they still are doing it because of the ethical reason. Exactly. And like this guy clearly didn't have a ethical connection or understanding of it. So then as soon as somebody else comes along and tells him, I think he mentioned that in the podcast with Joe Rogan, that like somebody came along, I don't remember who it was, maybe a trainer or somebody, and told him like, no, you gotta be eating elk meat or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he's like, so then it's just a diet. And then it's like, oh, well, I'll try that. Maybe it'll be a performance boost. And then he, combine that, like you said, with his basic lack of understanding of nutrition. He was probably under eating or probably wasn't eating enough calories or whatever. And then he gets like some calorie dense food. He feels great. Maybe he wins a fight. And then he puts those like one and one together to make two, that like, oh, the vegan diet's bad.
Yeah, no, exactly. And it's just, there's all these factors to it. So kind of sum up that tangent, I'm looking at diet a little bit differently, right? Where it's like, even if you do all the things, and this is an appeal to futility, because health is one of my value pillars that I hold within life. I think that everybody should. If you work hard to make money, you should work hard to make health as well. Like you should treat it just as seriously. And it's really easy. You just go on a whole foods plant-based diet, eat lots of fruits and veggies. It's really that simple. That's it. Yep. Find eight recipes that you like, that you're going to eat on a consistent basis.
Just rotate them.
And just rotate them, and then just eat out every once in a while. Like, it's so, like, here, I'll give you an example. So the past few weeks, like since the summer started, I've eaten out a little bit. I had some celebrations and stuff like that. So, going to a couple of vegan restaurants, but I've been eating whole food plant-based since January 15th, right? Because I've been losing weight and all this type of stuff. And I have had zero desire to even eat those foods, but I was like, hey, it's celebration. Let me, splurge a little. So I'm eating Reubens and fucking nachos and all this type of crazy shit. And but I was like, all right, that was fun, for the day or two, right? Or I'll go to like a sushi restaurant, get some avocado rolls, which I think that's like the healthiest of all the restaurants.
Yeah. I wouldn't even call that junk food at all.
And they do put a little sugar in the rice though. So
okay, but still,
Anyways,
McDougal even says that if you need to put a little sprinkling of sugar in your oatmeal, like it's fine.
So we went to Whole Foods because I've been eating a little bit fattier foods and stuff like that. So I wanted something fun, beans and quinoa. I'm kind of over it. And so we were in Whole Foods, and then right when we walked in one of the first like little freezer end stand things were the new Beyond Meat sausages. Right. And that's like, I love trying new products when they come out. I feel like I feel like I'm obligated to do so when a company releases a new vegan product. You know, I'm putting in money in the marketplace, you know, showing some support. And I held them up and I'm just looking at them like, this just does not seem appetizing at all whatsoever, because I want the whole foods. Right. I'm so deep into the whole foods, just eating natural foods, that like this like, cause I was like, how are we going to cook it? I don't even think we have any like oil at home, you know, like how are we going to fry? We don't have a grill, you know, we don't grill, and all this type of shit. And my wife was like the same way. I was like, no, this just doesn't, you know, and it's not because it's like Beyond Meat and it looks like sausage. It's just like this greasy processed food. Yeah. It's like, no, let me,
you know, it's funny that you say this, because just like 2 weeks ago, I bought a vegan, like it was like a Hungarian sausage, like a smoked sausage style thing, and it was made with like barley and like seitan and I don't know, whatever, and you know, it was just kind of ground up. It looked very much like the traditional Hungarian like you know, smoked sausage, and I had never had it before, and I was like, exactly the same thing like you said. I'm like, screw it, I'll just buy it and try it, just see what it's like. And I get it home, and my wife is like, oh, it's gross, like why would you want to eat that? And you know, and like, I'm like, man, I just wanted to try it. So I ended up eating the whole thing, and it was like, you know, it was only like a little piece. It was like maybe like that big for the whole thing. And taste wise, I mean, it pretty much, like, I would say it's like, you know, 90% like what the real deal would have tasted like. So I would say that most meat eaters would probably be like, yeah, it's like, it's pretty okay, you know, like it tasted fine. But I had a couple of like workout sessions after eating that stuff, and it was literally the same exact bad feeling that I had when I went for a run after eating, like, say, real sausage, you know, years and years ago. It was the same thing. It was like I was like burping it back. It was like just really bad in my stomach, and I was just like, man, this is not a good idea. I'm never buying that crap again. It was just as bad as eating the meat.
I have no interest in eating like processed. Like, I had some cake, you know, some real rich cake, and I was just like, I can only take a few bites of it. I was just like, nah, this is like, I could see how this tastes good, but right now the way my taste buds are, like, just get this shit away from me. Like, I only could take a couple bites of it because it was just too rich and sugary and stuff like that, which is a quality problem to have, because then when you eat like a Brussels sprout, it tastes like good. A nectarine, it's so good. So again, to how I'm viewing nutrition and the whole debacle is like, the first one is, you got to understand it's an easy thing to fix, and it's not the end all be all solution to every possible thing that could be wrong with you, right?
Yeah. I think, you know, to bring it back to a couple of things. One is like just general activism. I think you know, we as vegans should, if we're ethical vegans already and not just pushing the health aspects, we should definitely be careful of how we market that or how we say it. So, you know, we shouldn't be telling people like it's a magic pill and it'll cure your cancer and, you know, make your pee smell good and whatever. I mean, it can help with those things, and for some people more than others. But yeah, like it shouldn't just be this thing of like, you know, it'll fix everything you've ever had wrong with you. Like it might not. And I would agree with that. But to go back to something like sports related, like, you know, and one of the other things I want to talk to you about too is like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I've started doing this now, you know, I actually, it's been 1 month since I've been going once a week, and I really enjoyed it. It's really awesome. And the
format, are you doing gi or no gi?
I've done only 1 gi session so far, and I've done 3 no gi sessions. Yeah. So I want to do kind of like alternating. So I bought a gi, and you know, I want to just go like one. You know, my eventual goal, like if I had like all the time in the world, I would probably be going like twice a week or maybe 3 times a week. But I just can't squeeze any more into my schedule at the moment. So I'm just hoping to do like, you know, just this and like learn the basics, and you know, at some point maybe like when I'm raking in the YouTube cash, you know, like, and I don't have to go to my job anymore, then
just live the jiu-jitsu lifestyle.
Then I'll go more often. But no, so my point is though that like, you know, the format for the class, and I don't know if it's the same for the ones you were doing, is like you have like this warm up where you're doing all this stuff like dynamic stretching and some like, you know, like rolls and, you know, stuff like this. And like, there's a lot of like core strengthening moves. So you're doing these like little like butt wiggles across the mat and all these kinds of things.
And stuff.
Yeah, you probably know all the moves. And then, I mean, just that is like a good workout already. Like the first time I went, I was so brutally sore, man. Like I was sore for like 2 days, like after that, like hardcore. I was more sore after that than when I ran around Lake Balaton.
I watched you did a video. It's like, I don't even know my name.
I literally told the guy that my name was Peter. It was so funny. I like, and then I like caught it after I said it. I was like, no, actually, wait, that's wrong. That's not my name. It was the craziest moment. But so anyway, so like just the warm up is already, you're like, wow, like this is like a pretty hard workout. Then you have like the technique session. So you have like the instructor, you know, demonstrate a technique. He, you know, explains it, kind of shows you what you should be paying attention for and all this kind of stuff. And then you split up with a partner and then you practice that technique, both parts. So like the attacker or the defender. And then there's like maybe 3 or 4 of these, maybe 5 at the most. I think it depends on how long it takes to get through the thing. And then after that, they have like sparring sessions at the end. So the guy puts up 7 minutes on the clock and then it's like free sparring. You can just, you know, do whatever. And then there's 3 of those sessions. So that's 21 minutes of like super, super intense, like, you know, heart rate, you know, at max, like you're trying to basically survive and like not get killed. And what I've noticed already is in just going for these few classes is that some of the guys that are like way bigger than me, way stronger than me, they have way more experience. They obviously already know like moves. They're submitting me like really easily and all this kind of stuff. And what I'm noticing is that by the end of the 7 minutes, some of these guys are gassed out. And I'm like 100% convinced that like some of this is the diet. Like it's the lack of the, you know, the fat and, you know, the cholesterol clogging up my arteries, and I have good cardiovascular health. And like my energy level, I'm not saying I don't get tired by the end of the 7 minutes. I do, but like I can feel that like some of these guys, like they're killing me like at the start. That by the end of the 7 minutes, like some of the guys, like I actually submitted a guy last time and the dude was like, he probably had like 20, 30 pounds on me. He was a big guy. And I got him at the end, you know, and it was just kind of like, I think it wasn't because of technique, because I like don't know anything. And I know like 2 moves that I've learned so far. And it's just that he gassed out. He got tired. And I remember the Conor McGregor, Nate Diaz fight, you know, and I think, you know, it was like, you know, he just didn't have the stamina to go for the.
Well, the thing about cardio and combat sports, and shout out to Marshall Lee, he's I seen him in the chat.
Oh, nice.
Is when it like without cardio, like if your cardio goes, your grappling IQ goes to 0. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, you don't have brain, like oxygen going to your brain. Yeah.
You don't want to do anything. You're just a piece of shit. So I had a similar experience because I took a break. I took a year off, right? And I started back up in April. And I've been going about twice a week, maybe 3 times a week.
Nice.
Just whatever my knee allows for, because I'm working around that. And this time, because I was doing whole foods plant-based since January. So I had a few months underneath. And the worst part about taking big layoffs, because I've been doing jiu-jitsu on and off for like 11 years, right? So I'm not a stranger to these long ass layoffs and then coming back and just being destroyed, and just cardio is just fucking shit, right? And I was sedentary too. I was doing my physical therapy leading up to it, but and like my cardio was fine. Like it was weird. It was like my cardio was just like, I mean, granted, I wasn't like trying to, you know, push and kill and stuff like that, but it was just like, all right, you know, no worries. But so here's the thing you're gonna learn about jiu-jitsu, and I think this holds true to any of the other combat sports and martial arts, is that these guys are getting tired because they suck. Like their technique sucks, right? So one of my first videos I made was, is Brazilian jiu-jitsu good for weight loss, right? And it's good for weight loss for new people who are sedentary because they're getting active, you know, and they're probably taking care of themselves in other ways for the first time too. But what happens is when your technique gets to a certain level, and I suck at jiu-jitsu. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. But when your technique gets to a certain level, you calm the fuck down, right? You don't become such a spaz. You're not utilizing so much energy. You know what I'm saying? Actually, your goal becomes to do the most with the least amount of effort, right? And what happens is you'll see good guys just chilling, and it's like they're getting crushed or something like that, and they're just relaxed. Because they're using technique. They're not trying to muscle everything. They're not trying to use athleticism to get to the next position or to pass your guard or to take your back, or they're not trying to squeeze for dear life. So like how you view cardio when you start getting proficient is a completely different thing. And also, once you've put in some time on the mats, you just become comfortable with your body, and that's like the biggest advice I can give for anybody that's new is you just got to put in the hours on the mat, and you're just getting comfortable because your body's getting put in all these different positions, and you start freaking out because this guy who's 200 pounds has you in side control in his chest, and just pressure you've never felt before, and you start to panic and stuff like that. Because if they are gassing out by the end of the round, it's either like you guys are going at it like hard as hell.
Well, yeah, I was struggling. I mean, I don't give up that easy. So like,
no, and you should, and you'll soon enough you'll realize what I'm talking about in the next few months. But because that's what happens when newer guys come in, or guys with poor technique. Is they're always constantly struggling. They're always breathing heavy. It's like the guy who isn't breathing heavy, but transitioning from knee on belly to mount to your back and choking you out. Like he's just so comfortable and he's so just present to the moment, and he's using technique and leverage as opposed to just athleticism and anaerobic type shit.
Yeah. So that's a great point. Like the instructor in the last course that I was at last week, the guy is like he's really tall, and he's kind of like one of these lanky guys. So like he's skinny, man. Like his leg is probably as big as my forearm. You know, I mean, he's just this like real skinny, lean guy. And but you see the way he like moves, and you're just like, man, I wouldn't mess with this dude. Like he was showing this. I think it was called the guillotine.
Okay. So you got the head and you're holding up. Yeah.
And the way he was showing it was just like, once he got into the position, it was just a matter of like, he was just sitting back, and it was like, it doesn't matter if you're 3 times the size of this guy. Like just the leverage, that's the thing that you said, it's just like the angles and everything. Yeah. I really like that kind of idea that like you can overcome, somebody who's just like a lot bigger than you just by being smart, and like the way the angles work out, and it's like the lever on like, lifting a weight. It's the same thing.
Yeah. And it's like about that. It's about being like efficient with your energy. Like for example, if I have you in side control, right, and I'm blocking the hip on one side, I'm holding the head, and I got the shoulder of justice applied and shit. Like it's not going to do me any good to try to keep squeezing you any more harder. Right. And because that's just going to waste my energy. Like squeezing, like I have gravity, my hips are low, I'm up on my toes, I'm, everything's good to go. But if I'm sitting there trying to squeeze you because I'm afraid that you're going to get out, like I'm just wasting my energy, and like there's a couple ways to look at it. It's like, cause we do 7-minute rounds as well, but we'll do like 9 of them.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's brutal. I can't even imagine that.
So, or we'll do like 10-minute rounds. Right. This newer place I'm at, they do like kind of shorter rounds, but anyways, that's a story for another day. But like, it's like, I've got like 10 other of these people I have to go with. And then like, and that's what separates like somebody who has kind of matured, versus somebody who's kind of newer or is lower level, because they view every match as this like crazy, like a tournament, like I have to win and all this type of shit. It's like, and that's good sometimes too. Don't get me wrong. Like because you need to have that type of competitiveness, right? You can't just be a doormat, but you learn how to like manage yourself and within the rounds and stuff like that. That's like half the battle.
Yeah, my buddy had given me pretty good advice, because he's one of these people where like he trained very regularly, I think for like 5 or 6 years. So he had like a really steady, really good training. Like he got up to a blue belt level. And was doing really well. But then, then he had like this like layoff of like, I think he hadn't gone in like 4 maybe 5 years, something like that. So that's a big, he's basically going back now with me as virtually like a newbie. Like, I mean, he still remembers like some techniques, and he still remembers like body positioning and stuff like that. But like, as far as the actual like muscle memory and stuff, like, I think he's kind of treating it as like he's just starting again. But he told me that, like, look, you can't be, you can't have ego, because you're going to get hurt. Like, you have to know, like, if you're feeling like, your neck's going to get snapped, then like, shit, just tap out. Like, it's not, like,
tap early, tap early and tap often. Because like, like, it's all about like not forcing shit, like, for example, have you learned like the scissor sweep yet?
Nope.
No. Okay. So anyway, like, just take any type of sweep or whatever position you want to take. Like, so scissor sweep, I got you in my guard. I kind of, I got my left leg down by your knee. I got my right leg like and my knee on your stomach and ribs. I got one collar, and I'm pulling you on top of me, and I make a scissor motion, and then I sweep you over. If I'm trying my hardest and I'm using all of my strength to kind of sweep that person over, and I'm struggling, I'm doing the technique wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course there's gonna be some strength involved, but like, if I'm struggling and I'm about to fucking have an aneurysm, like, you're doing it wrong. Like, things aren't right. You might get the guy over, right? But
and then you're gassed out and can't do anything else.
You just spend all your time and energy trying to do this. You know what I'm saying? 2, like, it's not going to work on a guy who's much better than you. Because the technique isn't there. The proper way to do like a basic scissor sweep is you have to pull the person on top of you. So his hips are high up, like, but like they're over it's like over the plane, and then you sweep them on over. It should be like a very fluid motion. It shouldn't be like this, like, and that's what's going to help out with the cardio. But like, with white belts and like brand new people, you gotta work that white belt fury out of your system, where it's just like, I don't know what's going on, I'm gonna just fucking crush and shit. It's good times.
I've been having fun though. It's been cool to just see like a bunch of videos and stuff like on YouTube. There's some really great channels that I've been kind of discovering, and people put up like all sorts of like tips for beginners, and like, they're just telling you what to focus on, and just body position, where you don't want to be. And
bro,
just
for
basic
you,
stuff. Really fun.
Just showing up, and like, say somebody tapped you out 6 times last week. It's like, I'm only going to get tapped 5 times this week. That's the goal. Cause at white belt or at the beginning level, it's just about survival. Dealing with just surviving, dealing with uncomfortable positions and defense. That's all that it is. You'll tap out people here and there, but it's it's fucking rough, bro. It's rough.
It's been really fun. I really enjoy it. I think there's just like something about martial arts in general that like is really good for the mind and good for the spirit. And I think if you're training with good people who have kind of like a good attitude and are not there to try to kill you, like then it's a really kind of like good situation to be in. And I also think there's a lot, like I did a quick video about this on one of the trips back from training, where I talked about activism and related it back to this kind of martial mentality. Like, I really think like we have an obligation to kind of help the people who are farther back on the road than us, and also to learn from the people that are farther up the road from us. And I think martial arts is just great for that. Like, there's people in there who are like blue belts, and they're definitely able to show me stuff because I don't know anything. And then, of course, there's people like way ahead of them, and there's like brown belts who are showing them stuff. And then there's like, the black belts showing them stuff. And everybody probably feels like the person ahead of them is just like this, like, wow, like person that can just do anything. And the person ahead of that person is probably feeling the same thing about the person ahead of them. So, I think,
the cool thing about, sorry to interrupt, the cool thing about jiu-jitsu is it weeds out all the douchebags, because it takes so long to get good. Like, it takes years to get like to a decent level. And what happens is you have all these people who will walk in and they'll only take a few classes, and then they can't stand getting beat up. Like, just punished, just absolutely just punished for all that time. Like, their ego can't handle it, and then they dip out. You know,
I
so
also think maybe like if somebody's used to being like a bigger guy and then having somebody smaller than them
yeah,
like take care of business just real quick,
yeah.
that's a real ego booster, or sorry, like
Destroyer.
bubble.
Yeah,
Yeah. So for somebody who's going in there just thinking like, I'm a big guy, I know how to take care of myself, and then some little skinny guy with legs that look like that like, takes care of you.
It's I know what I'm doing, you don't know what you're doing. You know, you're still a human. I still have to get around you, but like it's like I'm gonna choke the shit out of you, you know, or I'm gonna take your arm, you know. It's crazy. I like gi more than no gi. I trained no gi for the first time in like 6 years the other day. It was not a pleasant experience because they're almost two different things, right?
Yeah, it does feel really different from my limited experience so far.
So like with gi, you're able to slow things down much more. You're able to slow things down much more. And as somebody who wants to train for, you know, well into my 60s, 70s, and 80s, you know, from a longevity standpoint, that's much more conducive because you're able to slow shit down. You know, you don't have you can take that 20-year-old who's just filled with piss and vinegar and fucking hold them down and slow them down. Whereas with no gi, things are a lot more slippier. Um, and it involves more wrestling and athleticism and stuff like that. But like your technique has to be fucking super sharp in gi because there's so many more weapons and things that you have to look out for and different chokes and all this type of shit. There's just way more going on.
Yeah, there was somebody that I saw did a video comment about that question. I think the channel is called like Jiu-Jitsu or something, or Chewbacca-Jitsu, or I don't know, whatever.
I know
something
what you're
like
talking
that.
about.
Yeah, okay.
About, yeah.
It seems pretty knowledgeable, and it's got a bunch of videos up. And one of the things that he talked about was this no gi versus the gi question. And he just said, like, look, people complain that like the gi is not realistic to life, but he just said, like, look, you know what? People don't walk around in jackets. People don't walk around in coats. I mean, like, of course it's realistic. It's not exactly like a gi, but like it's absolutely, you know,
no, it's totally realistic. Yeah, no, it's totally because here's the benefit from a self-defense standpoint that you have as a jiu-jitsu practitioner over the random person is you are just so used to violence because you're rolling around with somebody who's resisting you nonstop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're just so used to that interaction, and people are not. People are not used to being physical with other people at all. Right. And not only do you get used to dealing with somebody who's trying to resist you 100%, but you have a systematic approach of and you know what pathways that you need to take to neutralize this person. Right.
Yeah.
And then it's the same is going to happen whether it's in a gi or no gi. Now, I think you should train both if you want to be well-rounded. But like, you know, this idea that you're just going to see a person walk around in shorts and then you're just going to be in shorts and you're, you know, like if you're on the beach or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, no, it's just like, you know, like all the top guys winning the no-gi tournaments, like ADCC is, you know, they're all the top gi guys too. So it's like, you either have good jiu-jitsu or you don't, you know?
Yeah.
And, but yeah, I recommend the gi though. I was not having a fun time at no gi. I was like, I tweaked my back a little bit and shit. Cause like with the gi, you can hold people down. You know what I'm saying? Like you slow shit down. And then when you have all these 19-year-old fucking white belts running around with going nuts, it's like, and they're slipping and sliding all over the place. It's just like fucking, you know, it's fun, but I suck. So that's probably why I couldn't hold it.
That's cool though that you're going back into it. Cause I remember I remember you saying it, and I think the stream with Planton, where you were talking about your knee injury and how you'd been out for a while. Yeah. So that's good that you're able to get back in.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm limited on some of the stuff I can and can't do, but it's like, you know, I've been making it work. Like I can't go ride my bike, but I can go roll a bunch of rounds. It's like the weirdest thing, you know?
Well, definitely different set of muscles. I mean, like I was saying, you know, I ran 114K in like the space of 30 hours, but like I was sore for like 3 days after my first class, and I was sore in places that I didn't know I had muscles in.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that? I don't know.
Yeah. No, exactly. It's and you get used to it. And the only way to get used to it is just to keep doing more jujitsu. And just
Nice.
like if you're in a bad spot, just tap, and shit like
Yeah.
that. Because injuries do. I've popped ribs a few times. This one rib sticks out. I've had fucking, muscle spasms in my neck. I have back injuries, knee injuries. Fucking, I've had staph. I've had MRSA. I've had fucking, pretty much you name it. Injuries just up the ass and shit like that.
I've read that it's actually one of the safer martial arts, surprisingly.
It is.
Yeah, it's I mean, I guess that just more goes to show you the fact that the other ones are even more dangerous. But
because you get to go hard, right? You get to go real hard, but nobody's punching you in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll catch an elbow here and there, but or a knee, but
unintentionally,
yeah, it's unintentional, right? So you're not dealing with concussions. You're not dealing with that constant violence of head trauma and all that type of shit. It's fucking nuts.
Yeah, I do like it that it's this very realistic kind of situation that I think you just feel
fucking
more
crazy.
Confident that you can take care of yourself if you needed to.
Fucking nuts. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah. And it doesn't it doesn't make you any more I think it's just the personality if you already are somebody who would be avoiding conflict, it doesn't make you want to get into it anymore. It's just making you feel a little bit more confident that you can get out of it if something were to happen.
If anything, it makes you not want to get in a confrontation at all because you see that there's people out there who can do whatever they want with you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and again, the ego thing, it depends on how you go in there, right? So it's if you know that, then you're not going to allow your ego to get you in trouble. Yeah,
it's just and it's the most unassuming people that just completely just destroy you, And it's just oh, people are capable of doing that. Because, before you start training, it's just yeah, whatever. I'm a tough guy. And then you go, right? And you're just getting fucking smashed for 2 hours straight. And then day after day, week after week. And then you're just all right, fuck, I'm not getting in any altercation.
You never know what the other guy might know.
No. And then you amplify it with multiple attackers and all this type of shit. And you're just no, I'm and then like you said, you have this confidence where it's yeah, I mean, if something were to go down, I'm confident in my ability, Yeah. I just hope nothing ever has to go down. Ever.
Yeah.
Not once. It's I've been in one street fight as an adult, right? Post training jiu-jitsu. And that specific instance helped me phenomenally, right? It was multiple attackers, so it was 9-on-3. Or it might have even been more balanced. Yeah, and I wasn't part of the 9,
Yeah.
And essentially, it was three of my friends and a girl, but she doesn't really count. And what happened was my 2 friends, they got beat up pretty bad, not pretty bad in the sense nobody had to go to the hospital, but they took some lickings, And I did the most basic of shit, right? I was wasted too, bear in mind, but I did the most basic shit that you learn in jiu-jitsu, right? And, one of the things I was able to, that I think allowed me not to get as hurt was my distance management. You know what I'm saying? I understood exactly what was going around and what was happening because I was so used to the rustle and tussle, right? Sometimes when you train, especially in the beginning, it feels like your tumbleweeds and legs are going this way, arms are going that way, like an old cartoon. And then you break up, you have no idea what just happened. Whereas when you train, that goes away and you're able to recollect and know exactly what's going on. You'll even see it you're rolling with somebody and your partner's looking around to make sure you're not rolling into other people. They might even end up talking to other people while you're you're underneath them and you're I'm trying to kill you, but you're just so nonchalant and you just have this type of awareness and just a couple techniques that I did just saved my ass, a technical get up. You know what I'm saying? Just basic jiu-jitsu 101, a technical get up, right? And a body lock takedown and a butterfly sweep like that. Those a couple of things just saved my ass. I took some lickings, but it felt like I had just gone through a hard day of training. It wasn't even hey, it wasn't a big deal. One friend had to go to hospital a couple days later because he had some bruised ribs. But
Hmm.
you know, out of
Well, I
what
guess we're
could
lucky
happen.
though. Yeah, I mean that's bad news. Even if you're a very well trained like
Oh, that
martial artist, I
sucked.
think just being that outnumbered is just never
That sucked.
good. Yeah.
That sucked. Yeah, and the one thing I learned was like, oh, I don't know how to box. Like boxing would be fucking great right now. Like if
Hmm.
I knew how to fucking box, because like you don't want to take people down on the street when there's multiple attackers.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Because you could
And
be handling that one guy really well, but then the other two
yeah,
comes
and that's what
over
happened to
and
me.
yeah.
Because like what happened was they were like following us. We left the establishment. We were across the street. We weren't even on the property. They all followed us, and then you know, I looked away, and then I turned around, and then my one friend was on the ground, like kind of like in a fetal position, while three people were stomping on him. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I ran over, you know, body locked one of the guys, brought him down to the ground, sunk my hooks in, and started choking him, you know, a rear naked choke. And then somebody started punching or kicking me in the head. And then at that moment, I knew I fucked up. At, the, at that moment, I was like, oh, I don't want to be on the ground at all. But it was just reflex,
Yeah.
right? And it was so easy. It was just like boom, 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 choke. So somebody started kicking me, and then somebody started trying to choke me from behind or try to pull me off or whatever. But I was able to escape that, you know? And
Yeah.
then I was able to do a technical get up to stand up. And then I got tackled, got the guy off me real quick. And then I was just managing distance, trying to get people to stop coming at me.
Yeah.
But then I remember like one guy, this Mexican guy, was coming straight for me. And I was just thinking like how easy it would be to take this guy down and just choke him out, you know? But then a guy next to him started walking towards me, and then another guy started walking, and then
Yeah.
I'm
So you
just
don't want
like,
to be on the ground. Yeah.
you know, and I'm just looking behind me, make sure there's nobody, you know, coming up, and I'm just yelling at them like, this needs to stop, because like that at that moment I was like, this shit just got real serious. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like three people, like this is gonna be bad. This is gonna be bad. But it all stopped as fast as it started.
Mhm.
Right, like you know, but I lost. I lost a $400 pair of glasses. You know, that
Yeah.
shit pissed me. I was blind and shit, trying to get into a cab, all blind without any glasses.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, it's bad. Best to just avoid it as as much as possible. But I think you're right. Like if you have like some good jiu-jitsu, and then if you had like some boxing or striking, maybe some kicking, like you can pretty much take care of yourself. Like I think these are really good. And I've seen several people talk about this that would be like a good like recommendation. I don't know if you feel the same way, that like if somebody wants to learn how to take care of themselves, like you start with jiu-jitsu, then you add some kind of striking after that, you would like get good in boxing or maybe like kickboxing or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. You start with jiu-jitsu because, say for instance, in that situation, somebody were to tackle me, right? I know how to get up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I know how to get up fast, as opposed to somebody who has no idea, because everybody walks around standing straight up. That's how they're comfortable, right?
Yeah.
But you put them on their back or on their stomach or on their side, they don't know what the hell they're doing. They don't know how to stand up. They don't know how to get up when somebody's trying to hold them down. And if you have multiple attacker, you need to stand up. You can't be on the ground. So just that tidbit alone. And then, so you do jiu-jitsu, and then of course, like on a one-on-one fair fight, right? Fair fight. 9 out of 10 times the jiu-jitsu guy is going to win. Because in a fight, anything can happen. And then the jiu-jitsu guy starts training some boxing or some, Thai boxing or something like that, kickboxing. Then it's just like, you're good, and then you get a gun.
You covered a lot of bases there. Yeah.
And then you get a gun, and then
well, again,
that's the number
the best
one
thing is to avoid everything if possible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Then you get the strap, right? You get the strap. But
nice.
so bringing it back to the nutrition thing. So the second way I view things differently is I've been watching this Walter Longo guy. He studies longevity. I guess he's a well-respected scientist when it comes to the aging process and stuff like that. He was on the Rich Roll podcast recently.
Oh, cool.
Dr. Joel Kahn, the plant-based cardiologist, that's where I found out about him. And he promotes a plant-based diet, but he still includes like fish and stuff like that. So he eats a predominantly plant-based diet. He says I'm vegan 5 days a week, right? He's like one of those fucking guys. Yeah. Anyways,
he's plant-based 5 days a week.
Yeah.
But I know.
Which, like, guys, people can get away with eating some meat and be healthy as fuck. Like, I know a lot of people are gonna get mad.
Too, I mean, like, the classic like Okinawan diet, right? You eat 4% of your calories from animal products, you're still gonna live to be 100.
Exactly. And so this is kind of how I'm looking at diets, right? Whereas, because what Dr. Longo talks about, he promotes fasting, like this fasted mimicking diet, where you just, if you're a healthy person, you do it once or twice a year, where it's specifically designed for like a 5-day partial fast where you're only eating like 1,000 calories or so each day, and then it's specific nuts and seeds. It's all vegan and shit like that, and it's supposed to mimic the long-term good effects of fasting, such as stem cell regeneration, shit like that. It's pretty interesting. Fasting is a pretty interesting subject. Anyways, but he promotes this because you get the same benefits, but you're not starving yourself. So it's easier to do, and you're getting nutrition and stuff like that. But anyways, so he talks about like these 5 pillars, and when examining like a diet to see if it's healthy. I don't know what exactly all the 5 pillars are, but essentially he's like, okay, is there epidemiological studies that are based on it? Right? Do we have studies that show that this particular situation that we're looking at is true? Are the claims that you're making present in the blue zones?
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So are the claims that you're making present in the blue zones? Do we have mechanistic data? Right. Metabolic ward studies, shit like that. Like, like these pillars of science. Like, does your diet have these pillars? Do they have 4 out of 5? Do they have 3 out of 5? Do they have all these things, the epidemiological, the metabolic ward studies, the blue zones, and all this type of shit? And if you can't reach all 5 of those with your diet, right, then you can't be persuasive in that this is a long-term healthy diet, right? So what somebody asked him about the ketogenic diet, and he's like, listen, I'm sure there are some benefits to the ketogenic diet, but that's a 1 pillar type of thing, right? Because we see it in very specific cases that it's a healthy diet, but we don't see it in the blue zones. We don't see any epidemiological studies based on it. We don't see any metabolic ward studies on the impacts of this, and this. So you cannot say that this is a healthy diet.
Yeah.
Right. This isn't something that you can prescribe to every single person. This is just, it's a 1 pillar thing. It's bullshit. Essentially, that's what I read between the lines.
Well, and it could be helpful for like specific things, but then harmful for others.
Exactly. And that's what he's saying. He's like, we have the studies on the epilepsy or the seizures or whatever, and it does good on that. But what else? What it doesn't fit.
Yeah. Is it destroying your liver? Is it giving you heart disease? Whatever. Yeah.
Where are the red zones where like in the parallel, like a blue zone that's plant-based, where are these red zones that are filled with red meat and bacon and all this shit, and these people who have low chronic disease and stuff like that? So now I'm looking at diets are like, okay, does it fit the 5 pillars? Is it healthy? Right. So to tie this back into the raw food versus the cooked food, right? So I'm not saying that a raw food diet that's 100% on raw food is an unhealthy diet. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying it's a 1 pillar thing, right? Because there's just not evidence. It doesn't meet the criteria. You don't see it in the blue zones, right? They eat a lot of raw fruits and vegetables, but they're eating a lot of cooked foods as well. There's no epidemiological studies on any, good scale that's
large scale.
Show, right. There's no studies on there. There hasn't been any reason to do a metabolic ward study to see any of the mechanisms or the passageways that a raw food diet creates. There's no, there's nothing, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't I wouldn't tell people not to eat it just because of that, though, because just because it hasn't been done on a large scale before, like in like a societal way, doesn't mean that it can't be good if if people did do it. So I wouldn't. I don't know if I would like. I have to look more into this guy's like reasoning or thinking. This is really kind of the the only thing I know about it is what you've told me.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, because if you remember the debate that Logan and I had with Milk Jar, right? Like one of his big things is that Milk Jar insists that, like, and a lot of other people claim this too, that like a vegan diet can't be good because it hasn't been shown to exist in nature and like an already existing society. And I wouldn't agree with that, because I would say, like, the Okinawans had the 96% diet. They,
the vegan diet
had 93%. And so to say that the 100% might not be even better, that doesn't make sense. So I would say, like, maybe there could be something really great about a raw diet, but I just think there's enough negative things about it for me, just from the convenience and from being able to stick to it and all this kind of stuff, and cost, and there's just all these other things, and those just kind of make it difficult enough that I wouldn't, like, I don't want to do it.
No, I know. I've tried it. It's incredibly difficult. No, and I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Well, two things. One, the vegan diet does fit all those pillars, right? Because that 5% of calories coming from animal products, you're gonna have to demonstrate to me if that's a significant portion of nutrition, right? And then what nutrition comes from that. So if it's the blue zones, of course. We have epidemiological studies up the ass. It fits the 5 pillars, and he argues that as well. That's just what the science proves. Now, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not saying that a raw food diet is unhealthy. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you are to be persuasive, right?
Yeah, then you need more of these things. Yeah.
If you are going to be persuasive and are going to recommend people a diet, you have to have evidence and support on it. Because at this point, a raw food diet doesn't have the evidence. Now that does not mean that it's not a healthy thing to do, right? But if you're going to make the positive claim that a raw food diet is going to be better than a whole foods plant-based diet that includes both raw and cooked foods, you're going to have to provide some substantial, that's a big claim. That's a substantial evidence. And then, and I've made this argument towards raw foodists as well, is provide me the data, right, that shows that a population who eats a whole foods plant-based diet, who eats, let's say, 50% raw food and then 50% cooked food, and then compare them to the raw fruitists, and they could be fruitarians, whatever you want, perfect diet, right? What is going to be the significant increase in well-being? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What is it that
going to be any? Right? And I know Logan in the past has talked about, like, digestion. You digest things quicker. And it's like, well, what does that mean? What does that translate into actual well-being, right? If it takes,
I have no problems with digestion. So like what? Like, how is that going to get better if there's no problems? It's kind of like you were saying before. Like, if you're not having any issues, if you're not having any pain, then what kind of benefits are you going to see?
Right. So exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's like, okay. So, I mean, if meat takes 4 hours to digest, a potato takes an hour, and fruit takes a half hour, what is the negative impact that the potato is, that takes an hour to digest? Okay.
Well, so this is another thing where I think I would kind of go and agree with something you said earlier. When I was a full-on meat eater, I was eating everything. I was eating a lot of dairy and eggs and meat and everything, and I never had problems with digestion, and I never had problems with being regular and going to the can. And I always found it weird when people would argue for a vegan diet and say, like, oh, you need the fiber because you can't go. It's like I was still going to take care of business in the bathroom, like I would say maybe just as regularly, or maybe just slightly less regular. But I mean, I was still taking a dump 3 times a day, no problem. So it's like maybe now I do 4 or something. Like, I don't know. Like, it's not that much of a difference. But I was eating a lot of fruits and veggies already. So, I'm sure I was getting a lot of fiber. I was probably getting more fiber than like the standard American diet for sure.
Yeah, because you were probably eating a lot more fiber. And
I mean, I've been eating like anywhere from like 4 to maybe 7 pieces of fruit a day. I've been doing that for probably like 10 plus years, or maybe even more. So, and that has a lot of fiber. So, if this is going back to what you said, like if somebody's eating, 30% of their calories from meat, is it like better than somebody who's eating 60%? Yeah, probably. But like, is it even better to not have any? Yeah, I would agree with that. But the healthier you get, I guess the smaller those differences are going to be. And
yeah, and that's the thing is like it's like how significant. Like, so for example, well, let's just give the raw foodist the benefit of the doubt. Let's say on a scale of 0 to 100, 100's the best, most optimal health you can possibly be. A whole foods plant-based diet that's diverse, has lots of raw fruits and veggies, just ideal of what you think when you think of whole foods plant-based, gives you like a 95, and then the raw food gives you like a 96.5. What is the significance?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you might have a better score, and that on paper may make it better, but in practice, like, what does it actually do for you? You know what I'm saying? Like, what does it, like, what is the big difference there? That I don't know, because the thing that sucks, and goddamn, I'm gonna come across so anti-vegan in this fucking.
I wouldn't say that.
No, I'm trying to offer a counter argument, because if you don't explore the counter arguments, you're not going to know your argument well enough. Because
I agree with that.
The same argument can be made for somebody who gets 5% of their calories from animal products, but then eats a super diverse and well-balanced whole foods plant-based diet. For the rest of the time. What is the significant difference?
I would just go to the ethical argument.
Yeah,
for that person, I'm not going to tell them that they're going to have health benefits, because they're probably not going to perceive any of those benefits.
Yeah.
Even if there is some slight benefit, it's not going to be tangible enough that they're going to notice it.
Yeah, no, the ethical argument's always the best argument, because one of the things I've been doing is just reflecting on a lot of the debates and the arguments and the activism and shit like that. And it's just like, I found myself doing arguments that just are wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like saying things like, no, you cannot eat any meat whatsoever at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that to
anyone. For health. Okay, yeah. Hold on, guys. For health. All right, let's keep this into the context here. Just vehemently against it from the health standpoint. And I would still argue that any animal product is an unhealthy thing that you're putting in your body. But
just that you can handle it. It's kind of like, I think, people have joked around about this, that like, if you drank a little bit of like, coolant, like, like antifreeze from your car, it wouldn't kill you. Like, if you had a shot of it or something, like, I'm sure it's not good for you. You might end up, if you did that every day, you might get throat cancer or something. I don't know, whatever. But like the dose does matter. So like, yeah, it's certainly not good for you. But if you're eating like the 4 or 5% from animal products, you're still probably going to live to be 100. Like I said, like,
yeah,
I don't think it's going to really do anything. And I think, if everybody did eat that way,
oh my God,
we wouldn't have to have like vegan activism in the sense, because like I would still try to convince people, like, from the ethical standpoint. But
of course,
it would almost be like not really like a movement in the sense that, like, you wouldn't see the environmental destruction, you wouldn't see the major impact to,
it would be
to health.
It would be a vegan world. It would be a vegan world.
Yeah,
we would win.
Yeah, and I think most people, if they got to that point, they would see how silly it is to continue eating that 4 or 5%, and then it would be easier to convince them. I think for any hard case, like somebody who's like really, really like fighting you on everything, and they don't want to admit the ethical part, like for that kind of person, I would say, like, okay, fine, eat the Okinawan diet, eat 96% plants, eat 4%, whatever else you want, like from animal, products, and then see how you feel, and tell me if it's not better than the way you feel now.
Yeah, well, that's why, like, and you pointed this out in one of your debates with Milk Jar, because you debated him twice, right? Or was it just the one?
No, it was just one time. Yeah,
where he would bring up the blue zones, right? Because he was like, "See, you have to eat meat," and then I think you said something along the lines of like, "What about all those fucking plants that they're, it wasn't like it wasn't a meat-based diet. It's it's sweet potatoes and rice and vegetables and shit like that. It's like." It's the plants, man.
Yeah, it really is. I was looking at this guy's videos I was actually talking with Jack today, Jacko Wacko Vegano.
Okay. Yeah. Shout out to Jack. I like Jack.
Yeah. Jack's a good guy. So we're gonna hopefully do like a collaboration on something. And one of the guys we were talking about maybe doing. Hopefully this isn't like a big deal that I'm telling everybody, but we're gonna probably try to do like a debunking video on this guy Frank Tufano. He's like one of these like sparage type of guys, raw meat, uncooked, blah blah blah, and eat the brains and everything like this. And one of his videos that I was watching today, he's just talking about how like the problem of American nutrition is this lack of nutrients and vitamins, and people aren't getting enough fat soluble vitamins and all this kind of stuff. And I just think like so much of this like thinking comes from the old way that people thought of nutrition. What they saw was like incredibly impoverished areas of the world where people did have all these health problems, where they're just simply not eating enough calories. And that kind of mentality of like vitamin and nutrient deficiency has been brought over into the world we live in now. At least pretty much anybody who's watching this video, like you're living in a modernized world. You probably are not suffering from vitamin deficiencies and mineral nutrition. It's like what you're suffering from is the excess. And it's just such a basic thing that like these people don't understand that like vitamin A, show me the deficiency. Like I was looking up stats today. Yeah, the deficiency is found in countries where they are simply not able to get enough calories. The vitamin A deficiency problem that all of these like anti-vegan people are referencing, they're all happening in places like Africa, India, rural areas of the world where they simply just do not have enough calories for the most part. Like, who are the people in the U.S. with vitamin A deficiency? I don't see anything like that, but I do see a lot of people dying of heart disease and getting diabetes and cancer.
Well, that's why like my mind was blown how you framed that debate with Milk Jar, with the whole idea of it's not a deficiency problem we're having, it's an abundance problem.
Yeah.
And just that little phrase, and I'm paraphrasing, but just completely changed how I looked at nutrition, from that debate. I was just like, oh shit. And I think you did a great job at establishing your argument from that point forward. And it's just like that's the problem, right? And it's so funny because we get so caught up in the weeds of nutrition and biology and all this type of shit, where it's just like that's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, because I was like, all right, I'm going to really hunker down and get this nutrition shit down. You know what I'm saying? And I felt like how a lot of people feel like, where it's just like for every study that you pop up, there's a counter study to it, you know? And I was just like, you know what? This is such a waste of my time. This is such a waste of my time because, and some people are going to be like, oh, that's just too fucking simple. It's like, no, dude. The least controversial thing you can say is fruits and vegetables are healthy for you to eat. Yep.
Yeah. You never find a study that shows that that's unhealthy.
Right. I mean, you have now, because of social media, of these assholes who are like eating raw meat and like just putting out like just horrible misinformation.
Oh yeah, but it's not a study. I mean, and this is the other thing too. So this guy that I mentioned, the Frank Tufano guy, like some of the things he claims are like, he's like, oh, the Okinawans didn't eat 96% plants. And what they'll just claim this and they won't put any kind of like information out there. And he links like a blog post by somebody who says like, well, I went to Okinawa and they're eating tons of barbecued pork. And it's like, okay, well, that's what they're eating now. Did you also look at what their heart disease rates are now? They have like the worst health of like all the Japanese. They eat the most meat out of all of Japan.
Yeah.
And the 96% plant-based like Okinawa diet, that was done up until like the 40s, the 1940s.
Yeah.
And that was actually done as a like a research thing by the U.S. government, because they had they basically like were there like owning Okinawa after World War II. And they're the ones who did like these like food analysis, like questionnaires or whatever, and they found out what those people were eating. But since then, they are no longer healthy. So claiming that like that diet isn't good or isn't healthy, and just linking to some blog post by some guy who shows you that they're eating tons of pork, that's not legit. That's not science. That's not a peer-reviewed medical journal entry. And I would challenge, like, you know, and this is what we said in the live stream on the cholesterol too, is like, show me a person who's eating more than, say, like the 5, you know, let's even give it to 10%. Let's 10% of your calories from animal products, you know, heavy in saturated fat, heavy in cholesterol. Show me somebody who's eating a diet like that that has total cholesterol below 150. You're not gonna be able to do it. So it's just that simple. Like,
yeah, I just got all my blood work done. I think my LDL cholesterol was like 40 something.
nice.
They're just like
Yeah,
super
that's
low.
awesome.
And I was just
And
like, yeah.
yeah.
She's like, I think your HDL is a little low. You should start taking some fish oil. And I'm just like, and I told her, I told her, I was like, okay, so I'm on a whole foods plant-based diet, and vegans in general just have a lower HDL and stuff like that, because that's the truth. And it's a completely normal thing. It's completely healthy. And the reason why we have a lower HDL is because we don't have to deal with LDL. You know, that's not like a thing that we have to deal with. And so on average, a vegan's going to have lower HDL. She's like, all right, I'm going to do some research. So you can't have like any like fish oil or anything like that. And I'm like,
does it
no.
grow on a tree?
Yeah. I was like, no, I don't, you know. And she's like, all right, well, you know, maybe some like walnuts or something. And I'm like, you know, I'll eat some walnuts and, you know,
Yeah.
see what I can do. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, because, you know, maybe I do need to do something. But like, if the, like, everything that I've read and from what listening to plant-based doctors is like, yeah, the HDL is going to be on the lower side, on the lower average.
Yeah.
You know,
Even in one of the studies that I was showing yesterday in that live stream, this was obviously put out by like basically like the oil industry or whatever, as I mentioned. But even in that study, they referenced research that showed people with a genetic defect that makes their HDL level be really high, like abnormally high. Yeah. Even in those people, they had no protective you know, outcome with regards to like heart disease. So it's kind of like, and I think Dr. Greger has actually done videos about this too. Like this claim that like the high HDL is like really good for you is somewhat arguable and is a little bit probably overstated. So you know, I think just if your total is below like 150, if your LDL is below 70, you're pretty much good to go. Like,
yeah. No, exactly. And that's what I told her. I was my wife was like, just even the other day, unrelated to that conversation, but she's like, I want to find like plant-based doctors, and I'm like, good luck.
Yeah, it is really hard.
Shit.
Yeah, it's really hard. I was talking with my wife about this recently because, you know, we have 2 kids, and it's difficult even with the kids. You know, like you know, they're like, my son's in preschool, and the school system here in Hungary is terrible. Like, to get any kind of like you know, special like dietary consideration, it's just like a nightmare. And even just to get a vegetarian meal, you pretty much have to kind of like lie usually, or say some kind of excuse like, oh, my kid's allergic to, you know, something or whatever. And you can ask for like religious like things. So you could say like, I'm Jewish, I can't have the kid eating pork. You could say you're Muslim and then they can't eat, you know, something else. But like there's no like, I'm vegan and like don't give my kid you know, animal products. It's really difficult. And the doctors are the same way too, man. You're like, you tell your doctor or the pediatrician or whatever that like you're vegan, and they're like, ooh, you know, are they gonna get enough protein? You know, and it's like, God, you know, like it's I feel like I'm on YouTube. Like,
I know,
you're in the doctor's office.
I know. And I mean, she was like super nice about it, but I was deficient in vitamin D, so I got a prescription for 50,000 units of vitamin D, and I've been taking that, and which makes sense because I was deficient last year, took a prescription, but then I didn't really keep up with my supplements. And, you know,
check out Dr. McDougall's videos about vitamin D. You might not want to take it. I don't know.
No, so I've heard, I am like, again, this is like one of the things I'm confused on, because I've read shit recently where it does nothing.
Yeah.
You know, where it's just like there's like, you're not in a bad shape if you have vitamin D deficiency. Like
you're I mean, I look at it like this, man. I'm 40 years old now.
Yeah.
I was you know, an omnivore for, you know, 37 and a half years. And you know, like in the US, you have vitamin D added to like all your dairy products, right? So like milk, cheeses, yogurts, whatever. And I don't think that's as common here in Europe. So I'm pretty sure they don't have it here in Hungary anyway, and I'm pretty sure in other areas in Europe they don't have it as well. And I've already been living here for 8 years, so the majority of my time here in Hungary, I have not been getting any kind of vitamin D like supplementation, and I have had no ill effects whatsoever. And I've been here, you know, eight and a half years now, and like, you know, and most of that was as an omnivore. So if I wasn't getting it then, and I'm still not getting it now, and I'm still fine, like what's the, you know, I don't know. I just figure like 40 years old, and I have never had a problem with vitamin D. I mean, I like to be outside. I go running and stuff, and I don't know, like I just don't worry about it.
No, I know. Same here. Oh, so one thing I wanted to mention about these raw meat eaters who put out this bad advice, and you know they have no actual science to back it up, is what's unfortunate is the people watching these videos aren't the type of people who are going to demand evidence for these claims. So they're not the type of people who are going to search and look up their sources. Like they might say, "Oh, hey, see, he has a link. This is legit, right?" But never actually click on the link, you know. Because the type of people who would demand that type of stuff wouldn't be clicking on these videos to begin with.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's confirmation bias, right? Like they're going to watch this guy's videos because they want to feel better about their already terrible, like bad habits and decisions.
Yeah, it's Jacko Wacko Veganos in the chat.
Ah, nice. Hey, man.
The devil. But yeah, no, it's so crazy because it's just like, I don't understand whether this raw meat and like, you know, not fermented. Is fermented the right word? No.
Well, yeah, it's like it depends on which ones you're talking about, because some of these guys, they're eating just rotten, like rotten, yeah, like high meat.
Yeah, it's just like, do you think that they're actually doing this like on a day-to-day basis?
I think they are doing it often enough that like, yeah, it's legit. Like, I don't think they're trolling. I've had a lot of people ask me this question, if I think that they might be trolling. I don't think they are. I think they really are eating this stuff.
But like every day, or is it just a once in a long time?
Oh, no. Certainly I don't think they're eating it every day. I think they are eating the raw meat and the eggs and stuff every day. But I don't think they're eating the high meat every day, because I think it's just kind of too much trouble to make and keep. And I don't think, I don't know. Like, I don't think they would have access to that for like every day. I think it's more just like, because some of the stuff that they're eating, right? It's like, supposedly it's like been rotting in the jar for like 3 months or whatever. Like, you're not going to have, like that many jars or whatever.
Wouldn't they get sick from like bacteria and shit like that?
Well, I mean, some of them are, right? So, and they're even admitting it in video. So, I mean, like, you know,
didn't somebody get scurvy or some shit and then started having to suck on lemons and shit?
Yeah, that was Meteor Man. He had a video where he was saying that he had scurvy, but then afterward, when Logan made a video about it, then he was denying it and saying like, no, I probably didn't have scurvy. It was just probably something else. But it's like, but he did start sucking on the lemons just to be sure. So it's like you can say whatever you want. And I've seen, you know, other people get scurvy as well. So some of these guys that are eating like the zero carb, you know, the carnivore diet, I mean, that's even worse than what some of these other guys are doing. Because at least like, you had the nut bag, you know, like Agenus von der Planet's kind of following guys. Yeah. At least they are eating some fruits and veggies. They're juicing some things. They are eating some fruits. Even Milk Jar, you know, Milk Jar eats like quite a bit of fruit, I think. You know, he mixes it with like raw milk and honey and what have you, but he is eating some fruits. So I'm sure like he's probably getting enough that he's not getting scurvy.
Right. Cause like I remember when paleo came out, and the original formation of paleo, there's actually some respectable qualities about it, right? So like no processed foods, you know what I'm saying? Like it was like no processed foods. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the fucking battle right there. The battle is between processed foods and whole foods. If you just switch from processed foods to whole foods, you've made it to the fourth quarter of the game. You know what I'm saying? And you're up by, 20 points. Like you're good to go. Right. And then there's like no dairy. Right. So those are like the two big things. And then, getting people to look at what they're eating and like the ingredients lists.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, the paleo diet promoted lots of leafy greens and all this type of shit. But then, things started fucking tumbling really fast, right? And then somehow in the paleo community, it got absorbed by the low carb community,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
then,
think you're right. I mean, there's a lot that they get right. But then, of course, yeah, once you fall over into this, like, you need more protein, more meat. I mean, that's always been in there. There's this, like, mentality of, like, you need more protein. But that's in, like, almost every, like, sporting kind of, like, athletic, like, thing. Of just, everybody's downing these protein shakes and all this kind of stuff. And, man, I had a brief stint with protein shakes back. This was, like, 15 years ago or something. Like, my brother and I were going to the gym and like just working out and stuff. And I remember there was this time when he was just, he was like big into like, oh, we need to get more protein. And we were doing all these like protein shakes. And it was funny because we were looking at all the research of like, the soy protein shake versus the whey protein and all this kind of stuff. And we had tried both and all this kind of stuff. And I just remember like after even a few weeks of it, I was just like, this is just stupid. I literally don't feel any different. And I'm just not going to do it anymore. And then he kept doing it for like a while more, like probably like a few months after me. Yeah. And then he just stopped doing it as well. And we both just realized like, it's just totally unnecessary. Like it's
snake oil.
Like, yeah, it really is. Like it's not
really snake oil. Yeah.
All these and in fact, of course, it can have actual negative effects, as many studies are now starting to actually show that like too much protein can in fact have negative consequences.
Yeah. No, exactly. Because I remember I went through that phase or whatever. One thing that did work from what I remember in my like late teens, early 20s was creatine. Mm-hmm. I felt like I recovered, just like soreness was just much more faster or like or whatever. But I tried rice protein because I was trying to bulk up and just get it, as much as I could. But I was fortunate because when I first started researching all this type of shit, one of the first articles I ever clicked on just by happenstance was like something along the lines of the supplement wars. And it talked about, this was back in 2009, maybe,
it's a good while ago.
Yeah. And like, it was like, it broke down the industry, and then it talked about protein in particular. And they're like, this whole 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight is just complete nonsense.
Yep.
Right. And then they talked about, and this wasn't like a vegan site or anything, this was just supplement shit, where it's like you need like 0.37 grams of protein per pound of lean body weight, like it was just like the amount of protein that you actually need is so below what anybody ever fucking thinks. And like, that helped me because I never really fell into the trap of taking tons of supplements. I did, I messed around with the rice protein or whatever because I was bodybuilding, but I was trying to get as many calories in and stuff like that. But that only lasted maybe 6 months at the most. Same thing with the creatine, that lasted like a month or two. And
you probably lucked out on the creatine. I had a friend in college, and this was a hilarious story. He was a great guy. We used to go to the gym together, and he was training really hard. We were going like 3 days a week and doing all this, basically just weightlifting, bodybuilding kind of style. And he started like basically just taking the creatine like crazy. Like I think he was probably even taking more than what was recommended on the actual product. So I don't know exactly what that was, but he got like massive kidney stones from it. And I say that it's hilarious only because like, I remember I'll just tell this story because I think it's just really funny. We were hanging out in the mess hall, just eating food one night. And I don't know how the topic came up, but somebody was like, I think some of the girls from the floor were there, and somehow it came up that like, for men, like passing kidney stones is the equivalent or like in pain terms of like women giving birth. So this buddy of mine, he shoots off his mouth and he says, you know what? I hope I get kidney stones someday so that like later on, when my wife is like complaining about childbirth, I'll just be like, I've already done that. Like, just whatever. Don't complain to me. And the next morning, I'm going to like his room to pick him up on the way to the gym and go work out. I go knock on his door, and there's no answer. And like usually, he's a very like punctual person, and like I'm like, shit, what's going on? Knock on the door, no answer. Knock on the door again, pretty loud, and like I hear his voice from inside. He sounds like death. He's just like he can't like. I'm like, what is wrong? Are you all right? He's like, I don't know, man. I'm just like, there's no way I could go to the gym. I don't know. I'm real sick, whatever. I'm like, you're all right? Like, and he's like, no, I'm just going to stay in bed, like, whatever, I get back for lunch, like, later, like, that same day, and I'm talking to his roommate. I'm like, hey, is he feeling better? And he's like, nah, man, he's in the hospital. I'm like, what? Like, what's wrong? And it turns out he had kidney stones. It was just, like, the sickest, like, worst feeling that he's ever had. And they basically said it was probably from the creatine, because he was taking just like massive amounts, like crazy amounts.
Because the way you're supposed to take creatine is in cycles, right? So from what I remember, this was a long time ago, and I only did like 2 cycles, where it's just like you have a day or 2 where you load up, like there's a certain amount.
Okay, and then you like don't do it for he was probably just eating it like all the time.
Yeah, no, that's not how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to cycle on, and then you have a load day or 2, and then you take it every so often, and then you do that for like 6 weeks, and then you get off of it, and then you're supposed to. But yeah, that sucks, dude. Kidney stones fucking suck.
Yeah, but I mean, it was just it was only funny because it was literally the night before that he said he wished he would get it at some point.
Yeah. No, that's horrible. That's yeah, man. That's so crazy. And it's just like all these people, man, eating all this animal products. It just do you think that like this health kind of revolution is going to happen? Because like when I go outside, like, and I talk to people who are even somewhat interested in health, like they have no fucking clue.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I can only hope that it is happening, and I think social media is a big part of it because people are seeing it, and it's just harder and harder for the mainstream, like media and the corporate interests that own like television and advertising and everything. I just think it's getting harder and harder for them to maintain this illusion, and I think there's movies that are coming out. There's all these documentaries like that we've talked about. And I think just there's like more and more people in the limelight who are adopting this diet and showing how healthy they are, and like top level people in various sports, and I mean, there's like the Formula One racer guy. So even things where like that is not something that like most people think of as being athletic. But like the race car driving is actually supposedly extremely difficult. Like physically, it's very demanding. But like most people, I think if you didn't know that, like I didn't know that until somebody told me that, and then I started like reading into it, and it was like, wow, it's like they like lose all this weight, they're like sweating, it's like really intense, like physically. But like I just thought like, oh, they're sitting in a car driving, like it's not a sport. But it actually is, and it's very difficult and demanding. And so like you see these people who are like Olympic weightlifters and bodybuilders and all these kind of like people, runners. I mean, that's kind of what got me convinced about it, is like the running community. There's been a lot of like endurance athletes and specifically long distance runners, and they've just been demonstrating this over like decades now that it's like really, really good. People like Scott Jurek, he was kind of like a big person that got like first through to my mind that like, like maybe there is something to this and it's not just BS. And I think, my hope is that is working. And, you keep hearing about like, more vegan products and more vegans. Yeah. And I can only hope that it's getting through to more and more people. I mean, I've convinced a few people to go vegan, like in my personal life, which is really great, like coworkers and some family. Although the family is the hardest, man. That's just the worst. It's like it's easier to convince a total stranger on the street, I think, than your own like family. It's really hard. But I can only hope that it's going to happen. And I think the social media is the way that it's going to do it, because it's not the corporate interests. They're not going to change unless they're forced to.
Because I mean, it's without a doubt the stats are in that more people are conscientious about where their food's coming from and what they're eating and stuff like that. It's just when I talk to people, it's like all they do is talk about low carb and sugar. Like
Yeah.
that's all they talk about. And I'm like, you're missing. It's like sugar's bad, but like it's this, you know, an
Well, and
apple.
they think, yeah, exactly. They
They
think
think
the
an
banana or
apple
the
is,
apple is the same thing
yeah,
as a spoonful of sugar, or like a Mars bar,
yeah. It's just
which
like,
they don't
wait.
realize probably has more fat calories than sugar
Or when
calories.
they say like carbs, they'll say pizza, and I'm like, but 50% of the calories are protein and fat, and you know, or you know what I'm trying to say, like the
Yeah, and
majority
if
of the
it's
calories.
loaded with cheese and meat, it's probably even worse. Like it's probably higher percentage from
Yeah,
fat.
yeah, exactly. It's just like, are you serious right now? I'm serious. I need to buckle down on my diet though. I've hit a plateau on my weight loss journey.
Hmm.
I've hit a big plateau. I've been stuck at like this 400. I've been stuck at like this 210, 212 range since like late April. I noticed like I've gotten down as low as 207, but I didn't eat like really eat for a day or two right before that.
Hmm.
Uh, like I was just like busy and shit, then I end up eating. So I don't necessarily count that per se. But yeah, I've been kind of stuck, and I've been trying to get down to 200 by August,
Hmm.
and it's just like I'm stuck. But I've also been eating less vegetables and less fruit. You know, I've just been sticking to the rice, the beans, and then like the quinoa. You know,
Yeah.
and some
Well,
you know
I mean,
greens. I
you
need
know,
to
take it
turn.
from William. I've had kind of like, you know, periods where I've been real heavy. So like, I think the worst I got was like up to 220, and I'm
Yeah.
just under 6 feet tall. So I don't know. I think you might be taller than me if I remember right. But yeah, so like, you know, I'm like just under 6 feet tall, and I was at 220, and that was like very, very fat. So like, that's not like muscle, like 220. That was like, I
Yeah.
had zero muscle. I was not working out. It was like horrible. It was like just after I had moved out of my parents' house, and I was eating really unhealthy, like just going to like the food bar, you know, at the mall, or like, you know, the food court, or like
Oh
eating at
yeah.
Cheesecake Factory, or, you know, places like that, just like horrible, horrible, you know, terrible diet. And you know, I dropped down from there to like probably about like 190. And I did that on an Atkins diet actually, which is kind of funny. And it was like horrible. It was like the worst 4 months of my life. I mean, I was just like miserable all the time, and it's just stinky as hell, man. Like that was one of the main things that convinced me that it was just not good. It's just when you're in ketosis, your urine smells really bad, your sweat smells really bad. I just figured like that can't be healthy, you know. Just so anyway, long story short though, like, you know, I've been, you know, kind of fluctuating around, you know, from like various times of like when I'm not as active or when I'm eating kind of like worse, and especially before I was vegan. Like I could easily gain, you know, 10 pounds, no problem. If I just was like busy, like I kind of tend to be a stress eater. So like if I get busy and if I get stressed, then I just like eat. And, you know, that's an easy way to kind of get fat pretty quick. But as a vegan, I think like when I really just moved to a vegan diet, like what I found is that I can maintain my weight easier. But even now, like, I mean, I definitely have some weight that I'd be kind of happy to lose.
Yeah.
But the only difference is that like I just don't feel as unhealthy. Like even
Yeah.
having the extra couple pounds on me, like my cardiovascular is like just through the roof. It's like it's so much better than it was even when I was even like a lot fitter, like aesthetically looking. I would say like lean,
Yeah.
as a meat eater. So I think like, you know, you might have in your mind that like you want to be 200, but like 210, you know, I mean, you're looking good now, man. Like, you know, 210 is not a bad weight. And, you know, I just wouldn't worry about the number too much either. You could have also, you know, the plateau will break. Just keep doing the same thing,
Oh yeah, no, for
and you
sure,
know
for
it'll just
sure.
move. It might take another couple weeks or whatever. Like I wouldn't worry about the weight too much. It
Yeah,
can.
no, it'll come off. I just try to get shit done here, pal. Try to get shit done. All right.
You're ambitious, I know, but
Uh, no, because it's been a slow go too. Like I've it's been roughly. I mean, now it's kind of halted, but about a pound a week. You
that's
know.
good, man. I
Yeah.
think most people say if you can do half a pound a week, you're doing great. And if you're doing much over what you're doing, much over a pound a week,
Yeah.
that's not sustainable. That's not good.
Well, dude,
Crash.
if you wanna get real crazy, so beginning of last year, I was 240.
Mm-hmm.
240.
Yeah.
And
30
that's
pounds, man, in a year, that's not bad at all. Seriously. Like
uh,
that's very good. And that's a You know, that's like a good sustainable amount. That's why you probably haven't like yo-yoed and gone back, because that's what a
No,
lot of
not at
people
all.
do. They crash, they starve themselves, they go crazy, and your willpower can only last for so long. So if you're going to bed hungry every night, like, yeah, you're going to lose a lot of weight, you know, for sure. You're going to lose a lot of weight fast, but you're not going to be able to maintain that weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just going to totally give up.
Yeah, no, you gotta eat the foods you enjoy, and just don't let yourself get hungry, but don't eat until you're super full either. That's like
Yeah. I
I
think
like
that's actually one of the things the Okinawans are known for too. They eat to that like 85% full kind of feeling,
yeah.
where you're just like, you could have a little more, but you're just like, oh, it's pretty all right. Like, I
I
don't feel
like
hungry anymore.
MMA nutritionist Mike Dolce.
I don't know.
Um, he's a meat eater. He promotes eating meat and stuff like that, but he's super vegan friendly. Like he's like, if you want to be a vegan, that's cool. And he had tons of his recipes are vegan, you know, in his book, or can be easily modified to vegan. You know, he gets some stuff wrong. Don't get me wrong. Like he promotes like grapeseed oil and all this type of shit. I'm like, how are you going to talk about not eating any processed foods, Mike? And every recipe has oil in it, you know? Like, where's that? You know, he's got a lot of these good, you know, concepts where it's like, eat until you're satisfied, not until you're full, right? Don't count your calories, make your calories count, right? So eat like, because he doesn't have like a shtick. Like it's not like, oh, we're doing keto. Like he talks shit about keto, like how stupid that shit is. And he's like, no, listen, you want to eat calorie or nutrient dense foods, right? And that's
going to
organic.
be your fruits and veggies for the most part. Yeah.
It's like, because I've seen him on tape, like feed his fighters vegan pizzas and shit, you know, like order a vegan pizza with vegan cheese on top of it, you know, leading up to the fight, just to have, you know, a treat, so to speak. And so his cookbook works too, because I remember dieting a few years ago and going on and just, you know, the way his Living Lean cookbook set up is, all right, these are our breakfasts, these are our lunches, and these are our dinners, and then you're just left to make, you know, your meal plan or whatever. And then so we would eat one of the breakfasts, we'd eat one of the lunches, we'd eat one of the dinners, and like a breakfast would be, you know, an oatmeal bowl, you know, breakfast bowl or whatever. And then lunch could be like, you know, fried tempeh with spinach, maybe some veganese and some sprouted grain bread, like an Ezekiel bread or gluten-free bread. And, you know, you eat that. And then for dinner, you can have like fighter fajitas or chili or something along those lines. And it was just like, you get rid of the oil, it's a whole foods plant-based diet.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid of carbohydrates, you know, although he does say like it's more about timing than anything else, right? So like if you're not super duper active, you don't need to eat 1,000,000 grams of carbs, you know, but you know, a sweet potato is way different than, you know, the sugar you put in your coffee. And
or like a donut.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Well, I think, you know, I always worry when nowadays, knowing what I do know about nutrition, when I hear people say anything to me about like carbs. I hate that word carbs, because they just all get it wrong in the sense that like they think of foods as being only one macronutrient. So they think of meat as being protein, which is completely wrong because most of it is fat, or at least
you
the
notice
calories
how they use
from
that
it.
shit? Like everybody uses that word protein now.
Yep.
Like they're ashamed. Yeah, they're ashamed to say that they eat meat or something along those lines.
Yeah, I need my protein. So that's like one thing. But then to call like rice a carb is just so like showing you that they don't know, they don't have an understanding of nutrition. They don't know like that, you know, that actually has protein. It actually has fat. A banana has fat. A banana has protein. Granted, very little. It's primarily carbohydrate, but it still has the other macronutrients too. Yeah. And for somebody to call a sweet potato only a carb, like that's just completely wrong. And really showing their ignorance.
It's funny you brought that up because somebody was like, I was talking to somebody about their diet because they're like, oh, I need to lose some weight. I was like, oh, well, what do you eat? You know, because I just lost, you know, X amount of weight. And they're like, oh, I eat a lot of carbs. And I'm like, well, carbs aren't a food. So what is it that this is what I literally said, and they started laughing. I was like, carbs are not a food. What is it that you eat? You know, you know, well, you know, I had a bunch of donuts. I was like, well, that's not a carb, you know, that's a pastry. You know, can't eat pastries if you're trying to eat healthy. You
Yeah.
know, it just doesn't work. And all the same shit.
I got to try your suggestion about the pancakes.
Oh yeah. So sorry, I didn't answer your comment. So we have nonstick pans,
Okay,
but
you do non-stick, yeah.
yeah, but in reality, I think it can work on any pan. When I say low heat, I mean absolutely very low.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like maybe on one or two, and like it takes a while. You got to have patience because you need to cook the one side thoroughly. Because if you try to go to flip it over, it'll
Yeah,
just
it'll break
completely
apart
fall
or
apart.
whatever, or it'll probably be like partially sticky, right? Like
Yeah,
a second
because
layer of it will be at the bottom.
what happens is all you need is oats, blueberries, and banana.
Mm-hmm.
You we just blend them up, and then you know we make a batter, pour a little bit, and then just really low heat. Because if you cook it on high, it'll burn real fast. But that
Yeah,
low heat will help everything solidify, and then you just flip it, you know, and then there you go.
nice.
Um,
I'm gonna give it a try
no,
because
it's
that's like the
great.
one thing I always feel guilty about. Like, is like, you know, we eat those pancakes probably like, I don't know, maybe like one day a week, maybe for like a
Yeah,
weekend
yeah,
breakfast or something. The
yeah,
kids like it, I like it, and I was thinking like, yeah, I'm, you know, using the coconut oil, and it's like that's not really good for you. But
no,
like
no, not at all.
I try to put the minimum amount that I need in there just so
Yeah,
they don't stick. But still, I'm like, it's not what I should be.
yeah. Well,
kind of
I'm
thing.
sure your diet. So I'm sure you eat a super clean diet. So a little oil here and there. You
Yeah, I don't
know,
think
it's
it's
not gonna
really
be a
gonna
big
be like,
deal.
yeah.
But no, you can totally make them because like my wife hates oatmeal.
Mhm.
Like she won't eat oatmeal for fucking like I've tried to make like the greatest oatmeal bowls in the world, you know, because
I love oatmeal.
we're always trying to solve the breakfast question, right?
Yeah.
Because I skip breakfast all the fucking time. Like I just eat a really big lunch and then, you know, two dinners. That's what I eat. And so I was trying to figure out something where, you know, she can eat something that's fun and in the morning. And then I found that recipe, like super easy, 3 ingredients. And then it took a couple tries to figure out how to cook it, you know, but then we figured out it was low heat
Yeah, that's the trick.
was the
Okay.
and then you just pour a bunch of maple syrup on it, slick, and
Yeah.
it's good. And then what's really gets crazy is if you let the pancakes sit out for a long time, they kind of turn into like little sausage patties.
Yeah,
You
they
know what I
shrivel
mean?
up. They get dried. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they're firm and stuff like that. Like it reminds me of like it doesn't taste like a sausage, just the texture, but it reminds me of like a McGriddle type situation. Like you can use those as like the bread, you know, and then get like an actual sausage in there and shit like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you let them cool down, it gets a little interesting. But yeah,
You know what I've found is a really weird thing is that if you take just like regular firm tofu, I cube it up into like these little things like about that size,
yeah,
and I cook it up in a like a skillet, and I add a little bit of nutritional yeast,
yeah,
a little bit of soy sauce, and a little bit of sesame seed oil.
yeah,
And then I just kind of like, you know, keep stirring it on like medium heat until they start getting crispy,
yeah.
and just like around the edges. And of course, you know, again, this is not like my healthy
Yeah.
food like
Yeah,
option. This is just like a, you know, whatever. But you make that, and like there's like a specific kind of like magic point at which point you just like have that perfect level of like it's not hard or crispy, but like just a little tiny bit starting to brown on the edges. You
yeah,
eat one of those, you close your eyes, and I swear to God, dude, it just tastes like one of those like horrible, like low grade quality hot dogs.
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
like from back when I was eating meat. Like I haven't eaten hot dogs, man, in probably like I mean, regularly, I haven't eaten hot dogs in probably 15 plus years. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I already knew like eating hot dogs was bad. Like, even when I was eating meat, like you just know that's horrible
Yeah.
for you. So, I mean,
I
I don't
remember
eat hot
eating
dogs.
them not even cooked. You
Oh yeah,
know,
well they're
like you
already
just bite
yeah
into that
yeah.
shit, like
It's horrible
fucking
for you, man. I
yeah,
mean,
so bad, so
but like
bad,
there's
old
just
school.
something about like this cooking of this tofu, man. You just eat it and you're like, oh my God, I'm eating a hot dog from like 15 years ago. It
Yeah,
was like the weirdest thing. The texture, the taste, everything was just like it just tasted like a hot dog. I don't know.
Yeah.
It freaked me out a little bit.
Yeah. No, what's so crazy is like you can cook anything whole foods, plant-based, no oil. Anything that you want. Like I did I've got this tofu and broccoli recipe, which is supposed to be like an orange chicken type situation, or like it's like all it is, you know, you press tofu really good, you
Hmm.
know. Like you want to get, so like when it comes to pressing tofu, what I've learned is you want to get it to feel like mozzarella. You
Okay.
know what I'm talking about? Where it's
Yeah.
kind of damp, because you're not gonna get all the water out of it, but it's like firm, you know?
Mhm.
It's kind of like a cloth, kind of. And then all you do is you take some sriracha and some soy sauce, and then you mix that together, and then you just soak the tofu in there for, you know, 20 minutes or however long, you know, you just get it wet. You throw it in, you bake it, right? Just
Okay.
watch it, unless you have like a silicone sheet, like you got to watch it so it doesn't stick to it. You know, you flip it over halfway through for 15 minutes, and then, you know, you cook the broccoli, you get some onion, some ginger, and some onion and ginger. I think that's it. And then maybe some garlic. And then, you know, you start frying that up in some water, and then you steam the broccoli, and then you throw the tofu in there, and then you take the rest of your sriracha and soy sauce, maybe some water, you know, and then you throw it in there, and then oh, cornstarch. Sorry. This
Oh,
was
nice. Uh-huh.
corn cornstarch in the sauce.
Hmm.
So when
Thicken it up a little bit.
yeah, it thickens it up, and then the sugar, the starch caramelizes, so it becomes sticky
Hmm.
when you do it. So I don't know if cornstarch constitutes as whole food,
No,
uh,
it certainly wouldn't, but
but so that kind of defeats my whole point. But nonetheless, what I was gonna say though, like we're elitists, you and I, when it comes to the health food game. All right. So like what we consider like unhealthy, you know, like the
yeah,
little
yeah, I mean,
tofu or the
well,
little coconut oil is like
yeah,
the healthiest thing the average person's gonna eat in like the past 10 years.
yeah,
You know?
yeah.
It's crazy.
I think this is where we have to keep the perspective, like we were saying, right?
Yeah.
Like me eating those pancakes like once a week for one meal, not even a whole day, just one
Yeah.
meal of the week. Like, yeah, I'm not going to worry about that. Like the little bit of saturated fat that's in the oil or whatever, like
Yeah.
it's not going to kill me because I'm not eating any overt
Exactly.
sources like from animal products. So
And it's a
yeah, I
different
think
type of, there's different types of saturated fat too. Like the type of saturated fat that's in coconuts isn't the same type of saturated fat that's in an animal. Like there's different
yeah.
actual
Well,
classifications of
and you're
saturated
also
fat.
not getting the cholesterol. And I think if you have the saturated fat and cholesterol at the same time, it amplifies the effects too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's
Yeah,
definitely
it's
not as
crazy.
bad. Yeah.
Well, that's why I was like, the doctor was like, when I got my blood test, she's like, "Oh, your saturated fat or your cholesterol went down, like
Mhm.
your LDL or whatever." And I don't know what it went down from,
Mhm.
because I didn't get to see the result for whatever reason. I'm sure if I would ask, um,
They probably
yeah,
have the record.
I would,
Yeah.
yeah, I would be able to see it. But she was just telling me, all right, this is good, this is good, this is where you're at, and I just asked for like the most basic shit, and then she's like, yeah, I mean your LDL went down. You know, that's really the only change that's happened from this year versus, you know, 2 years ago or whenever, or last year. Yeah, sorry, it was last year.
That could
And
easily be from the processed foods that you're cutting out.
yeah,
Like
no,
what else?
that's what it had to have been, because the only change in my diet has been since January, you know, and then this was just like last month, and I was just like, oh, okay, so look at that, whole food plant based diet lowers
Yeah.
your LDL, like,
And your
uh,
LDL is probably already lower than most people to
yeah,
begin with.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, I don't want to keep you up too late because I know it's getting late
Yeah.
over
Uh,
there. But do you want to take some questions from the audience?
yeah. Let's see if anybody's got any questions in the chat. And
Um,
while anybody's typing, I'm going to just say one thing real quick, Liam, is I think just if nothing else, if you're going to be looking for content that you want to do, man, do some of your cooking videos, like
those are
the recipe
fun.
you just described, man. Just like put up stuff
Those
like
are
that.
those are so one of the big, like, so I was talking to you earlier about like a technology issue,
Mhm.
right? And now because I have a cell phone, I finally have a cell phone, I can actually make videos on there. Um, but you know, one of the reasons too was I couldn't use my editing software on my computer. You know what I'm saying? So that really killed a lot of the motivation going in. But But yeah, but yeah, the cooking videos are fun. Anyway, so Peter has a question. He says, vegans like to point out when calves are separated from their mothers is cruel. So I was wondering what your thoughts on children being separated from their parents at the U.S. border.
Yeah, do you want to take it or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I'll take it because
Yeah.
politics and the economy and shit like that, that's been like at the top of my mind lately. So here's my thoughts on that. I mean, there's a couple of ways to approach it, but I'll give you kind of my general view on that. When it comes to immigration, I think we should let anybody in. Essentially, I mean, there would be a vetting process and all this type of shit. You know, don't get me wrong, but I think we should open the borders, but we should get rid of welfare, and then that's it. Immigration helps countries because what you get, like America, because people try to say that like immigrants steal jobs and shit like that. That's not true. If you look at the actual data, the skill set that Americans have it's in like the mid level, right? So Americans are good in this bubble right here, but what we don't do well are these super low jobs and then super high jobs, like high skilled jobs, right? So what happens is immigration actually attracts low skilled workers, which fills that gap, and it attracts high skilled workers as well. You know, we're talking about like the billionaires and the crazy scientists and doctors and stuff like that. In the mid level, you don't see too much immigration from there because in order to move, you have to have some sort of great pain, right? Or some sort of great incentive to upheave your life and stuff like that. So people with low level skills have a reason to move because they're probably in complete poverty, right? Absolute complete poverty. So they're moving in and they're filling in the low level skills jobs, and then the high level people, they have something to gain, right, from their career, from their
got some specialty skill. Yep.
Exactly, that they can only accomplish with the resources that America has. And what happens when those people come through is they end up creating these huge companies, which provides resources and jobs, or they have some sort of crazy technological breakthrough, or you know, they get like a Nobel Peace Prize or some crazy shit like that. The getting rid of welfare, which is a box that would need to be unpacked, is because then it disincentivizes people to come as well. You know what I'm saying? And then, you know, there's tons of reasons for that. But I'm also open to the idea of like a universal basic income for certain people and stuff like that. And my whole view on politics is completely like been crazy.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do like a separate stream talking about politics and some of these questions, and kind of I actually have it in my mind that I want to invite you and Swag Vegan on to talk about liberty specifically. So I've been rereading the book On Liberty by John Stuart Mill. I don't know if you've ever read that. And it was written, when was that? I guess like mid 1800s. British guy, John Stuart Mill, great philosopher and thinker. Definitely recommend it. You can find it online. It's in like public domain. So yeah, and I'd want to talk about some of the concepts in that book. I'm just about done rereading it now, but just to kind of keep it not too political and not piss off too many people. Like, I mean, my view of politics is pretty bleak. I don't believe in any of the like parties. You know, not just in the U.S., but I just mean like anywhere. Really, the ruling parties do not have the interest of people in mind, and I think, you know, it's a terrible you know, human tragedy that children are being taken away from their parents. I think also like what people don't realize, there's a lot of kind of like jingoism and nationalism going on now in all parts of the world, as far as I can see. And there's a lot of that in Europe here now. There's a lot of it in the US. You know, ultimately, I think what's happening is like, this is just more of a divide and conquer tactic from the powers that be. The haves and the have-nots is just getting more and more extreme. And there's going to be bigger and bigger social upheaval in the future. I really worry about these things, actually. And one of the big things that I think a lot of times happens is people are convinced that these people are coming in and kind of, you know, stealing our jobs and that kind of thing. I remember when I was living in Boston years ago, you know, I would get into arguments with people. I was working in, you know, like a consulting company in the IT department, and these guys, you know, were from the server, you know, support team. I was arguing with one of these guys, and he was like, you know, these guys are coming in and stealing our jobs. I'm like, have you looked around, like, our company? Like, do you see any Mexicans? Do you see any Guatemalans? Do you see any, like, any of these, like, South American, like, people? Do you even see Puerto Ricans? I'm like, no, man. Like, the last, like, brown skinned person I saw was, like, at the door, and they were, like, you know, either cleaning or they're running security. I'm like, they're picking fruit in California. They're working in the horrible slave, you know, wage kind of jobs, like in the animal processing plants and all this kind of stuff. And they're being horribly exploited. And these people are, you know, if you think about, like, what would make you, like, if you're a parent, you know, I always try to put it in my own perspective, like here in Hungary, like, there's a lot of, like, anti-immigrant kind of, like, rhetoric and kind of stuff going on. And, you know, everyone's very much afraid of this Muslim invasion and, like, people coming from Libya and all these other areas. And what I say is, like, you know, as a parent, what would make you be willing to take your kid, walk for, I don't know how many days straight through a freaking desert, get to some port town, take all of the stuff that you ever had worked for in your whole life. You've already sold it. You've condensed it down to some amount of money. And then you pay some crooked, you know, official to bribe them to get you onto some kind of boat or something that is in all likelihood going to probably sink. And then you're willing to go and try to go across the Mediterranean to get to, like, Italy or Greece or wherever the closest, like, land point is. And you're then going to be willing to face, like, deportation, abuse by police, abuse by people in a country that you don't even speak the language and you have no contacts in, and hope that you can maybe get asylum or whatever. Like, people are like, oh, but they're going to Germany, and Germany's giving them all this, like, social assistance and whatever. I'm like, you would risk that? You would do that with your kid? You would go and, like, try to go across. It's like, no, man, these people are not going because of the social assistance in Germany. They're going because their home's been bombed apart. Their, like, family and friends have been killed before their very eyes and blown up. And they have, like, zero outlook of what it is that they're, you know, trying to, like, do, which is just to, like, provide for themselves and their families. You know, I just think, like, that it's a horrible, like, human tragedy that this kind of stuff is ongoing. And then again, I'll save this for kind of the separate stream, but I think like the U.S. and the Western powers that be, and I don't I don't claim that it's just the U.S. By any means. Like, you know, they are now doing what was happening hundreds of years ago in the colonialism days. We as a Western society are basically living off of the backs and the resources of the, you know, quote unquote developing world. And we're basically, you know, fighting unjust wars, like creating terrorism, all to exploit resources in faraway lands. And we are creating these problems of immigrants who are trying to flee from these, you know, terrible situations and try to get to places of security. That's my view on it. But we could talk about it a lot more.
Much more in depth than mine. That's for sure. No, I pretty much agree with every single thing that you said. Because my family were immigrants and stuff like that. They, like my mom, and they came from Europe, and you know, they were just able to make a better life for themselves. You know, and I want that for other people. And the big question is, what you have to ask is, you know, what role does government play? You know, and that's really helped me understand my positions much better. And even because I was in a debate like a month or two ago against like this, like just this kid who a leftist would probably be a good way to label him. And I didn't do too well. I didn't do too, like the argument didn't go well for your boy. But he didn't do well either, you know, because he was kind of all over the place. And that I learned so much from that. It made me realize, oh, I don't know these arguments as well as I thought I did. So, you know, I started doing tons of research and all this type of shit, changed a lot of my opinions on certain things. But I also realized, like, there's so much straw manning and there's just so much complexity to so many of these issues that it's so hard to talk about, right? It's so hard to talk about. It's just like, oh, well, this person's a leftist, so they want centralized government and blah, 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 blah. Well, it's like, no, I mean, that is true, but it's not true. But, you know, I'm just fighting a straw man here because I'm just, you know, talking about, so it's like, well, no, like, what are they actually talking about? Are they actually talking about fighting poverty? Okay, so if we're going to have a conversation, we can't talk about this, this, and this. We have to talk about how do we combat poverty and what role government plays in our day-to-day lives and what is it that we're trying to accomplish, and take it from there, which is it's a more of a directionalist kind of approach to the conversation. And I think the failure that I've done in the past, and what a lot of people do, is they try to start with the utopia, you know, where it's like, oh, libertarian utopia or, you know, communist utopia, and then work backwards from there. It's like, well, okay, that doesn't work, right? Because that's a fantasy, that's a utopia. It's like we have to look at what it is that we're doing right now, right? And then what can we do to increase well-being without infringing on liberties, right?
Yep.
And you know,
we should definitely talk about liberty, and that will be a good conversation. And I think Swag Vegan also had some really interesting videos where he's talked about liberty and kind of the libertarian mindset. So I think that would be a really good conversation.
All right, sounds good, man. Shout out to Swag Vegan. I haven't seen him around in a while.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's just been too busy or something. I hope he starts making content again. I really enjoyed his channel. If anybody hasn't subscribed to him, you know, walk on over there and tell him we sent you. And I see Planton joined as well. Hey, man. Yeah, we got a collaboration coming up between me, Logan, and Planton. That's going to be coming out soon. So yeah, I saw your section of the vid, man. It's really good. I love the pictures that you put in there. The pink tricycle killed me. I just laughed out loud. It was good. So yeah, look for that soon. Anybody else? Any questions, man? We're gonna pretty much wrap it up, I think, here. Oh, Jesse's saying Starch Muncher wants you to sub. We were supposed to have him on yesterday, but there were some technical difficulties. He couldn't get in. So
all these noobs trying to figure out Google Hangouts.
Yeah. Hopefully next time we'll straighten that out. So all right, cool, man. Anyway, it's been a blast, Liam. I think I would just wrap up and just say, man, I really enjoyed your content. I hope you're going to be back. And, you know, maybe do the cooking videos or something else that you feel like passionate about, or we're going to do more streams and talk about politics. I think that could be fun too.
There you go. I mean, you guys see me in the comments, you know, I float around here and there. So,
yeah,
you know, yeah. All right.
Do it. Cool, man. It was good. I hope you had fun. I did. It was a blast. I'll let you know how the jiu-jitsu thing is going in a couple months. Maybe I'll learn some more stuff.
Just keep going, man. Just keep yourself safe. Keep your body, you know, getting enough rest, you know when you're overdoing it, because the key is not to go in there and kill yourself, right? The key is just consistency and just get on, because that's the battle I'm fighting right now, where it's just like, you know, going in there, working hard, but like, you know, making sure I'm not too sore or get hurt so I can't come back the next day.
Yeah. You definitely lose out then.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah.
All right, man. Well, that was fun. So, yeah, have a good night, everybody, and see you guys next time. See you, Liam.
Take it easy.